Hi there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to Fiction Moon. Get ready for an incredible journey as we present what if Harry audited Gringotts at age 6 and found Dumbledore had stolen the Potter family soul gems. If you find our stories entertaining, a simple like and subscribe would mean everything to us. Your support motivates us to create more. Here we go. Chapter 1, The Inheritance Awakens. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Nothing special about Tuesdays, Harry Potter thought as he swept the kitchen floor. Tuesdays were just like Mondays, except that the rubbish bins needed taking out. Just like Wednesdays, except that Aunt Petunia expected him to dust the sitting room. Just like every other day at number 4 Privet Drive, until the letter dropped through the mail slot with a soft thump. Harry paused mid-sweep. Uncle Vernon and Dudley were watching television in the other room, their laughter drowning out the sound of mail delivery. Aunt Petunia was upstairs reorganizing her wardrobe. No one else had heard. He leaned the broom against the wall and crept toward the entryway, careful to avoid the creaky floorboard near the cupboard under the stairs, his cupboard. Among the usual stack of envelopes and advertisements sat something peculiar. Unlike the crisp white business envelopes or glossy flyers, this one was made of thick, yellowish parchment. And strangest of all, written in emerald green ink was, Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging Surrey. Harry glanced nervously over his shoulder before snatching the letter and stuffing it into the waistband of his oversized trousers, beneath Dudley's hand-me-down shirt. He delivered the remaining mail to the side table and returned to his sweeping, heart hammering against his ribs. No one had ever written to him before. No one. That night, by the feeble glow of a borrowed flashlight, Harry broke the strange wax seal on his letter. It bore an ornate coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding the letter G. Gringotts Wizarding Bank, Harry read in a whisper, fingers tracing the embossed letterhead. Dear Mr. Potter, our records indicate significant irregularities regarding the Potter family vaults. As per Gringotts Security Protocol 713, the heir to any ancestral vault must be notified when unauthorized removals of family artifacts occur. The Potter account manager requests your presence at your earliest convenience for a comprehensive vault audit. Enclosed is a single-use portation token. To activate, hold firmly and state, Audit. May your gold flow and your enemies tremble, Ragnock Silvertooth, Director of Inheritance Affairs, Gringotts Wizarding Bank. Harry's hands trembled as he read the letter 3 more times. Wizarding Bank. Potter family vaults. The words themselves seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Tucked behind the letter was a small, flat stone engraved with strange symbols. The portation token, presumably. Harry turned it over in his palm, feeling a faint vibration against his skin. It can't be real, he whispered to himself. Yet something deep inside him resonated with the letter's magic, like recognizing a long-forgotten melody. A muffled snore from Uncle Vernon upstairs reminded Harry where he was. If they found this letter. He shuddered at the thought. Uncle Vernon hated anything abnormal with violent passion. The inexplicable incidents that seemed to follow Harry, shrinking sweaters, suddenly appearing on the school roof, vanishing glass at the zoo, had already earned him countless punishments. Harry carefully refolded the letter and slipped it, along with the stone token, into a loose floorboard beneath his thin mattress. He switched off the flashlight and lay back in darkness. Family vaults. Irregularities. Unauthorized removals. Something belonged to him, to his family, and someone had taken it. The thought burned like a small flame in his chest, warming parts of him that had been cold for as long as he could remember. The following morning, Harry awoke with purpose. Boy! Breakfast! Aunt Petunia's shrill voice pierced through his door. Coming, Aunt Petunia, he called back, already pulling on his clothes. As he prepared breakfast, Harry's mind raced through possibilities. The letter could be an elaborate prank, of course. But Dudley's friends weren't clever enough, and nobody else paid him any attention. If it was real, if magic was real, then perhaps his parents hadn't died in a car crash after all. Perhaps everything the Dursleys had told him was a lie. What are you smirking about? Uncle Vernon growled over his newspaper. Harry schooled his features immediately. Nothing, Uncle Vernon. Better be nothing. And wipe down the car after breakfast. The neighborhood competition is Saturday. Harry nodded obediently while internally calculating his window of opportunity. The Dursleys were attending Aunt Marge's dog show this weekend, a day trip that, as usual, excluded Harry. I'll be leaving you with Mrs. Figg, Aunt Petunia announced, as if reading his thoughts. Actually, Uncle Vernon interrupted, lowering his newspaper, the old woman's broken her leg. Called yesterday. Aunt Petunia's face pinched with annoyance. We can't take him with us. Not after what happened at the zoo. I could stay here, Harry suggested, trying to sound reluctant rather than hopeful. Vernon's eyes narrowed suspiciously. And find the house in ruins when we return? I think not. I'll be good. I won't touch anything, not even the television, Harry promised. A plan was forming rapidly in his mind. If he could just have a few hours alone. Dudley began wailing dramatically. I don't want him to come. He always ruins everything. After 20 minutes of negotiation and Dudley's crocodile tears, Vernon finally relented. Fine. But listen here, boy, he jabbed a thick finger toward Harry. You'll stay in your cupboard except to use the bathroom. One thing out of place when we return, and you'll wish you'd never been born. Understood? Harry nodded solemnly, while inwardly a wild, reckless joy took flight. Saturday would be his chance. The Dursleys departed at dawn on Saturday, Dudley still complaining as they pulled out of the driveway. Harry watched from the window until their car disappeared around the corner. Then he ran to his cupboard, pried up the loose floorboard, and retrieved the letter and stone token. His hands shook slightly as he clutched the token. This was madness, surely. And yet. Audit, Harry said clearly, half expecting nothing to happen. The world dissolved. Harry felt a violent tug behind his navel, as though hooked by an invisible fishing line. Colors and sounds blurred together as he spun through a roaring vortex. His glasses flew off his face, his stomach lurched horribly. Then, impact. Harry landed hard on a cold marble floor, glasses miraculously still clutched in one hand, the stone token in the other. Punctual. Unusual for a wizard, came a gravelly voice. Harry scrambled to put on his glasses and gaped at the sight before him. Behind a high counter stood a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen, shorter than him but with an air of ancient dignity, sharp-pointed ears, a dome-shaped head, and clever eyes that seemed to calculate his worth with a single glance. Harry stammered, getting to his feet. Are you? I mean, is this? Gringotts? Yes. A goblin? Also yes. The creature, goblin, shuffled some papers. Name? Harry Potter, he said, finding his voice at last. The goblin's eyes snapped up, narrowing slightly as they took in Harry's appearance, the lightning scar partially hidden beneath his messy fringe, the oversized clothes, his small stature. Indeed. I am Gornick, junior accounts auditor. The goblin hopped down from his high stool and came around the counter. He barely reached Harry's shoulder, but his presence seemed to fill the marble chamber. Follow me, Mr. Potter. The director is waiting. Harry followed Gornick through a set of bronze doors into a vast marble hall. Hundreds of goblins sat on high stools behind a long counter, weighing coins on brass scales, examining jewels through eyeglasses, and scribbling in ledgers. Wizards and witches in strange robes moved about, conducting business with the goblins or being led through doors that lined the hall. This is. Harry breathed, turning in a slow circle. The main floor of Gringotts, the only wizarding bank in Britain, Gornick supplied, moving briskly. Managed by goblins since 1474. This way. They passed through another set of doors and down a torchlit stone passageway. Harry had 1,000 questions, but the serious expressions on the faces of passing goblins made him hesitate. Instead, he focused on memorizing their route, left at the silver fountain, right at the massive granite pillar, down a flight of steps that seemed to glow faintly beneath his feet. Finally, they reached an imposing iron door emblazoned with the same coat of arms from the letter. Gornick pressed his palm against it, and the door swung open silently. "Director Silvertooth, Harry Potter has arrived for the audit," Gornick announced. The office beyond was unlike anything Harry expected. Rather than the opulent furnishings he imagined a bank director would have, the chamber was austere and functional. Maps covered the walls, strange instruments cluttered shelves and tables, and an enormous crystal hung suspended over a central stone pedestal. Behind a desk carved from a single piece of obsidian sat an elderly goblin with silver streaks in his wispy hair and beard. His fingers were adorned with numerous rings, and a monocle was fixed to his left eye. "Mr. Potter." The director's voice was deep and resonant. "We've been monitoring your family vaults for anomalies since your parents' passing. Please, be seated." Harry perched nervously on the edge of a chair that adjusted its height for him. "I don't understand," Harry said. "My family had vaults." "Plural." Silvertooth and Gornick exchanged significant looks. "You are unaware of your inheritance?" Silvertooth asked carefully. Harry shook his head. "My aunt and uncle said my parents died in a car crash. They never mentioned any money or magic." A moment of silence followed this declaration. Then Silvertooth's expression hardened. "This is most irregular. As the last Potter, you are heir to one of Britain's oldest wizarding estates. The main Potter family vault dates back to 1317. The director slid a ledger across the desk. Harry stared at the columns of figures, the lists of properties and investments, the itemized magical artifacts, all apparently belonging to him. "This can't be right," Harry whispered. "I sleep in a cupboard. I wear my cousin's old clothes. If I had all this..." "Your magical guardian would have been responsible for informing you," Gornick said, his voice carefully neutral. "Magical guardian?" "Albus Dumbledore," Silvertooth answered, watching Harry closely. "Headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He assumed guardianship after your parents' murder." "Murder?" Harry's voice cracked. "But the car crash..." "There was no car crash, Mr. Potter," Silvertooth said, more gently than before. "Your parents were murdered by a dark wizard who called himself Lord Voldemort. You are famous in the wizarding world as the boy who lived, the only person ever to survive the killing curse, which rebounded and destroyed Voldemort instead." Harry touched his lightning scar unconsciously. "This..." "Yes. A curse scar. Magical residue of dark magic." The room seemed to spin slightly. Harry gripped the arms of his chair, trying to process the cascade of revelations. His parents murdered. A dark wizard. Fame. Fortune. A magical guardian who had never contacted him. "The irregularities," Harry said finally, latching onto something concrete. "You mentioned unauthorized removals in your letter." Silvertooth nodded approvingly at Harry's focus. "Indeed. Our regular security sweeps detected fluctuations in the magical signatures of the Potter family vault. Upon investigation, we discovered several ancestral artifacts have been removed without proper authorization." "What artifacts?" Silvertooth opened another ledger. "The Potter soul gems." "Soul gems?" Harry repeated. "An ancient magic," Gornick explained, stepping forward. "Many old wizarding families preserve the knowledge and sometimes partial consciousness of their ancestors in specially crafted gems. Think of them as magical portraits, but far more powerful, capable of imparting family magic, memories, and guidance to their descendants. The Potter family possessed 5 such gems," Silvertooth continued. "Created by Linfred of Stinchcombe, the Potter family founder, and enhanced by subsequent generations. They contain the essences of Fleamont Potter, Charles Potter, Doria Potter Black, James Potter, and, most unusually, Lily Potter." "My parents?" Harry whispered. Indeed. Your father and mother added their essences shortly after your birth, during the height of the war against Voldemort. A precaution, we assume. Harry felt tears welling in his eyes. His parents had left something of themselves for him, and someone had taken it. Who removed them? He asked, his voice hardening. The magical signature belongs to Albus Dumbledore, Silvertooth said. Removed over a series of visits beginning November 3, 1981, 2 days after your parents' deaths. Harry's hands clenched into fists. Can we get them back? That is the purpose of the audit, Silvertooth replied. But before we proceed, we must confirm your identity beyond doubt. Magical inheritance is a serious matter. Gornick approached with a silver knife and a shallow stone basin. 3 drops of blood, Mr. Potter. It will verify your lineage and magical gifts. Harry barely hesitated before extending his hand. Gornick carefully pricked his finger, allowing exactly 3 drops to fall into the basin, then handed Harry a small cloth to stanch the bleeding. The blood swirled, then spread into thin lines that formed words and symbols on the basin's surface. Harry James Potter born, July 31, 1980 father, James Fleamont Potter, deceased, mother, Lily J. Potter née Evans, deceased, magical guardian, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore heir by blood, most ancient and noble house of Potter most ancient house of Peveril heir by magic, most ancient and noble house of Gryffindor magical affinities, transfiguration, paternal, charms, maternal, defensive magic, dominant, magical blocks detected, core restriction, 75%, unauthorized, metamorphmagus ability, 100%, unauthorized, family magic access, 100%, unauthorized, blood wards, active. Anchored to maternal sacrifice, Silvertooth's expression darkened as he read the basin's surface. This is worse than we suspected. Your magic has been severely restricted, Mr. Potter. Can it be fixed? Harry asked. Indeed, though the process is not pleasant, Gornick said. More concerning is the motive. Such extensive blocks would only be placed to prevent accidental detection of your magic, or to keep you dependent and malleable. Harry thought of all the times he'd been punished for freakish occurrences, how helpless he'd felt against Dudley's gang, how he'd learned to make himself small and unnoticed. Remove them, he said firmly. Silvertooth studied Harry with newfound respect. The procedure will be painful, Mr. Potter, and your magic may be unstable for several days afterward. I don't care. It's my magic. My birthright. Harry's voice grew stronger with each word. If these blocks are unauthorized, it means someone wanted to keep me weak. I won't let them succeed. Very well. Silvertooth gestured to Gornick, who left the room briefly. While my colleague prepares the ritual chamber, let us discuss the audit itself. Our investigators have traced one of the Potter's soul gems to a secret vault registered to Albus Dumbledore. Can you confiscate it? Technically, no. Gringotts vaults are inviolable. However, a hint of a feral smile crossed the director's face. As the rightful heir claiming stolen property, you may demand a reclamation audit in the presence of the Goblin Council. And that would force him to return it. It would force him to justify his possession of it. Given that family artifacts are protected by blood rights, he would be unable to prove legitimate ownership. The Goblin Nation does not recognize wizarding concepts like "for the greater good" as valid justification for theft. Harry's eyes widened at the phrase. He's taken these gems for the greater good? His favorite justification, Silvertooth said dryly. The question is whether you wish to proceed now, or after attending Hogwarts in September when you turn 11. Now, Harry said without hesitation. I've spent 6 years not knowing my parents or my heritage. I won't wait any longer. Gornick returned, nodding to Silvertooth. The chamber is prepared, Director. Excellent. Mr. Potter, if you'll follow us. The block removal must precede the audit. Your magic needs to be free to recognize and claim the family artifacts. Harry followed the goblins deeper into Gringotts, down winding passages lit by blue flames that cast no shadows. The air grew warmer, thrumming with ancient power that made the hairs on Harry's arms stand up. They entered a circular chamber with a raised stone platform at its center. Runes were carved into every surface, floor, walls, ceiling, forming intricate patterns that seemed to shift subtly when Harry wasn't looking directly at them. "Stand in the center," Gornick instructed, "and remove your outer garments. The ritual requires direct skin contact with the purification runes." Harry shed Dudley's oversized shirt and trousers, standing awkwardly in his worn underthings on the platform. 7 goblins entered the chamber, taking positions at equal intervals around him. Each carried a different object: a silver hammer, a crystal vial filled with golden liquid, an obsidian knife, a brass scale, a copper bowl, a jade wand, and a platinum orb. Silvertooth addressed Harry from the chamber entrance. "The ritual of unbinding will remove all foreign magic imposed upon your person. It targets only magic that is not naturally yours or freely accepted. The process works from the outside inward, first breaking the blocks on your abilities, then those on your core. Prepare yourself." Before Harry could ask for clarification, the goblins began chanting in a language that felt ancient and wild. The runes beneath his feet glowed white-hot, yet the stone remained cool. The goblin with the crystal vial approached first, pouring its contents in a circle around Harry. The liquid sizzled and sparked, releasing a sharp, clean scent like ozone before a thunderstorm. The chanting intensified. Harry felt a pressure building around him, as though the air was being compressed against his skin. The goblin with the jade wand traced patterns in the air that left glowing trails, while the one with the platinum orb held it high, catching the magical energy that now visibly swirled through the chamber. Then the pain began. It started at his fingertips and toes, a pins and needles sensation that quickly intensified to burning agony. Harry gasped as the feeling traveled up his limbs toward his center. The goblin with the obsidian knife stepped forward and made a slashing motion in the air before Harry. Though the blade never touched him, Harry felt something tear inside him, like stitches being ripped from a wound. He screamed then, couldn't help it, as wave after wave of foreign magic was forcibly stripped away. His vision blurred, sweat poured down his face. Through watering eyes, he saw strands of sickly yellow energy being pulled from his body and captured in the copper bowl. Nearly complete, Gornick's voice seemed to come from far away. "The core restriction is the deepest block." The goblin with the silver hammer approached and struck the floor directly before Harry. The impact sent a shockwave of magic straight into his chest. For one terrible moment, Harry couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't feel anything but the sensation of something shattering inside him. Then release, beautiful, indescribable release as his magic surged free for the first time in his memory. It exploded outward in a wave of pure green-gold energy that temporarily blinded everyone in the room. Objects began to levitate, the runes pulsed with renewed brilliance, the very air seemed to sing with power. Gradually, the storm of magic calmed, withdrawing back into Harry's body where it settled like a contented cat, warm and vibrant beneath his skin. He sank to his knees, exhausted but exhilarated. "Extraordinary," murmured one of the ritual goblins. "I've never seen such a powerful core in a child." Silvertooth approached, handing Harry a robe. "How do you feel, Mr. Potter?" Harry stood shakily, wrapping the robe around himself. Like I've been living with earplugs and blindfolds, and someone's just removed them." He raised a hand, watching with wonder as tiny sparks danced between his fingers. "Is this normal?" "Your magic was bound for nearly 5 years, Gornick explained. "It will take time to stabilize. But yes, this sensitivity to your own magic is typical after such a procedure." The blocks were stronger than anticipated, Silvertooth added, examining the yellow strands now contained in the copper bowl. "The magical signature is unmistakable." "Dumbledore," Harry guessed, and Silvertooth nodded. "Rest for a moment before we proceed to the audit," the director advised. "Your magic needs to settle before you attempt to claim family artifacts." Harry nodded, still marveling at the newfound awareness of his magic. He could sense the wards around them, feel the difference between goblin and wizard magic, even detect faint traces of his own power clinging to his discarded clothes. The world had suddenly become infinitely more complex and beautiful. After drinking a restorative potion that tasted of honey and cinnamon, Harry followed the goblins to yet another chamber. This one resembled a courtroom, with tiered seating surrounding a central platform. The Goblin High Council, Gornick explained in hushed tones as council members filed in. They oversee all inheritance disputes. Director Silvertooth will present your case. Harry stood straighter as Silvertooth began formally describing the Potter's soul gems and their unauthorized removal. The goblin's precise language and methodical presentation transformed the personal betrayal into a legal matter, one that clearly violated goblin banking principles. We call for a reclamation audit of Albus Dumbledore's Vault 713, Silvertooth concluded. The Potter heir claims his birthright. The eldest counselor, whose silver beard nearly touched the floor, raised a gnarled hand. The claim is valid. Prepare the retrieval. 4 armored goblins entered carrying a stone chest. They placed it on the central platform and stepped back. With ceremonial precision, the head counselor descended to the platform and pressed his palm against the chest. We call forth that which belongs to the blood of Potter, he intoned. Let no false claim or ward prevent its return. The chest began to glow with a soft blue light. The light intensified, pulsating in rhythm with Harry's heartbeat, then shot upward in a brilliant column that momentarily blinded everyone present. When the light faded, a small velvet pouch sat atop the chest. Approach, Heir Potter, the counselor commanded. Harry stepped onto the platform. The pouch seemed to vibrate as he drew near, as though eagerly anticipating his touch. If this artifact truly belongs to your bloodline, it will recognize you, the counselor explained. If not, the consequences will be severe. Harry swallowed hard but reached for the pouch without hesitation. The moment his fingers touched the velvet, a warm sensation spread up his arm and throughout his body, like being embraced by someone who loved him deeply. It knows me, he whispered. Open it, Gornick encouraged from nearby. With trembling fingers, Harry loosened the pouch's drawstring and tipped its contents into his palm. A gemstone the size of a large marble rolled out, deep amber shot through with veins of gold that seemed to move like living fire beneath the surface. The soul gem of Fleamont Potter, Silvertooth announced. Your paternal grandfather. The gem grew warm in Harry's hand, the golden veins pulsing more rapidly. Without instruction, Harry knew what to do. He closed his fingers around the gem and brought it to his forehead, pressing it against the skin between his eyebrows. Connection was immediate and overwhelming. Harry. A voice, kind, curious, slightly formal, echoed inside his mind. Is it truly you, my grandson? Grandfather? Harry whispered aloud, tears streaming down his face. Yes, my boy. Oh, how you've grown. You have Euphemia's chin, did you know? And your father's untamable hair, poor lad. Images flooded Harry's mind, a dignified man with wild white hair working in a laboratory, the same man holding a baby with messy black hair, family gatherings in a sunlit parlor, whispered consultations with a much younger James Potter about the perfect engagement ring for that brilliant Evans girl. I have so much to teach you, Fleamont's voice continued. Family magic, potion secrets, the Potter legacy. But first, Harry, why are you so thin? Where are you living? What's happened since James and Lily? The question broke off in a wave of grief and concern. Harry felt his grandfather's consciousness examining his memories, focusing particularly on the Dursleys and the revelations at Gringotts. Dumbledore, Fleamont's voice hardened. I trusted him. We all did. And he's left you with those people while stealing your birthright. Mr. Potter. Gornick's voice penetrated Harry's trance. Are you well? Harry lowered the gem from his forehead but kept it clutched tightly in his hand. I'm talking to my grandfather, he explained, wiping away tears. He's actually in here. The soul gems contain more than memories, Silvertooth explained. They preserve a portion of the wizard's or witch's consciousness and magical essence. Unlike portraits, they can learn, grow, and provide true guidance. Ask about the other gems, Fleamont prompted. Where are the other soul gems? Harry asked. Silvertooth consulted a ledger. Our investigations indicate they're hidden in various locations. The Charles Potter gem is in another of Dumbledore's vaults, under different security protocols. Doria Potter's gem was loaned to the Department of Mysteries, ostensibly for research. Your parents' gems. He hesitated. What about them? Harry pressed. Your father's gem is believed to be hidden inside a powerful magical artifact at Hogwarts. Your mother's. Silvertooth looked troubled. We detect its presence but cannot pinpoint its location. Powerful concealment magic obscures it. We'll find them all, Fleamont assured Harry. I can help track them. Soul gems resonate with one another, family magic calling to family magic. Harry repeated this information to the goblins, who looked intrigued. That would explain why Dumbledore separated them, Gornick mused. Together, they would be easier to locate. What happens now? Harry asked, still processing everything. You have claimed one soul gem through rightful inheritance, the head counselor stated. The Goblin Nation recognizes this reclamation as valid and binding. Further audits may be conducted to retrieve the remaining gems. However, Silvertooth added, Dumbledore will be notified of the removal. Banking regulations require it. He will know someone has accessed his vault. Then we must move quickly, Fleamont said. Before he realizes it's you. I need a safe place to stay, Harry said, unconsciously straightening his shoulders. And I need to prepare for when Dumbledore comes looking for me. The goblins exchanged glances. Gringotts can offer sanctuary for a limited time, Silvertooth said carefully. Under inheritance protection laws. But eventually. I understand. Harry clutched the soul gem tighter. But I have family now. Real family. And I'm not going back to the Dursleys. Never, Fleamont agreed fiercely. I'll teach you everything you need to know. Starting with how to access the Potter properties that Dumbledore doesn't control. Harry felt a surge of determination. 6 years of his life had been stolen from him, his heritage, his magic, his family's guidance. But that ended today. Director Silvertooth, Harry addressed the goblin formally. I wish to claim my position as head of House Potter in absentia. I know I'm underage, but given the circumstances, my magical guardian's betrayal and theft of family artifacts, I believe I have grounds. Silvertooth's eyebrows rose in surprise. An unusual request, but not unprecedented. It would require a blood ritual and the blessing of a family elder. His eyes fell to the gem in Harry's hand. I give my blessing, Fleamont said immediately. The boy has shown courage and decisiveness worthy of a Potter. The house needs a head to protect its interests. My grandfather gives his blessing, Harry reported. Then we shall prepare the ritual, Silvertooth decided. It will grant you limited emancipation for magical purposes, enough to control family properties and finances, though you would still require a guardian for educational matters. And enough to prevent anyone from forcing me back to the Dursleys? Harry asked. Indeed. As head of an ancient and noble house, you would have the right to determine your own residence, provided adequate magical protection exists. The Potter cottage in Godric's Hollow is compromised, Fleamont said, but the hunting lodge in the Lake District remains under family wards. Dumbledore likely doesn't even know about it. It was placed under Fidelius when your father was a boy, with me as secret keeper. My death didn't break the charm since the gem preserved my consciousness. Harry relayed this information, feeling a swell of hope. A home of his own. Family guidance. Freedom. We have much to do, Gornick said, a hint of excitement in his normally reserved voice. The ritual, securing your grandfather's gem, preparing documentation for your change in status, transferring control of the Potter accounts. And planning our next move, Harry added, thinking of the other soul gems waiting to be reclaimed. Dumbledore has had control for too long. It's time for a proper audit. Well said, grandson, Flemmont approved. I believe you'll make a fine head of House Potter. As the goblins bustled about making preparations, Harry stood in the council chamber, the soul gem warm and reassuring in his hand. For the first time in his memory, he wasn't alone. For the first time, he had family, magic, and purpose. The inheritance had awakened. And with it, Harry Potter. Deep in the heart of Hogwarts Castle, Albus Dumbledore was enjoying a peaceful Saturday morning with tea and correspondence when a silver instrument on his shelf began to emit high-pitched whistles and puffs of purple smoke. The headmaster's serene expression faltered. He rose swiftly and approached the device, adjusting his half-moon spectacles to better examine its erratic behavior. Impossible, he murmured, stroking his long white beard. The blood wards remain intact, yet. Another instrument, this one resembling a delicate silver scale, began to tip wildly back and forth before settling with one side dramatically lower than the other. Dumbledore's face paled. Without further hesitation, he strode to his fireplace, cast in a pinch of powder, and stated clearly, Gringotts, Director's Office. The flames turned green, but instead of allowing passage, they formed into the stern face of a goblin. Headmaster Dumbledore, the goblin acknowledged coldly. How unusual for you to call directly. I need to verify the security of certain items in my personal vault, Dumbledore said, abandoning pleasantries. My instruments indicate, all vault audits and retrievals are conducted according to goblin law and banking regulations, the goblin interrupted. As required by those regulations, a notice has been dispatched to you regarding today's proceedings. What proceedings? Dumbledore demanded, his customary twinkle entirely absent from his blue eyes. What has been removed? The notice will provide all legally required details, the goblin replied with the faintest hint of satisfaction. Good day, Headmaster. The flames returned to their normal orange color, leaving Dumbledore staring at empty ashes. For several long moments, the greatest wizard of the age stood motionless, his brilliant mind racing through possibilities, each more troubling than the last. Finally, he turned toward a perch where a magnificent phoenix watched him with intelligent eyes. Fawkes, Dumbledore said gravely, I fear we may have a serious problem. The phoenix trilled a melancholy note that seemed to ask a question. No, Dumbledore sighed, suddenly looking every one of his many years. I cannot yet know if this is for the best or a catastrophe in the making. But the pieces are moving now, and earlier than I anticipated. He gazed out the window toward the distant mountains, his expression inscrutable. Find Severus, he instructed the phoenix. Tell him to prepare for a journey. We must locate Harry Potter immediately. As Fawkes disappeared in a flash of flame, Dumbledore returned to the silver instruments, watching their continued agitation with growing concern. Oh, Lily, he whispered to the empty office, I tried to honor your sacrifice by keeping him safe. But perhaps I've made a grave miscalculation. Outside, storm clouds began to gather on the horizon. Chapter 2, Shadows of the Phoenix. The Potter hunting lodge materialized around Harry like a dream taking solid form. Nestled between ancient oaks and overlooking a misty lake, the stone cottage appeared modest from the outside, deliberately so, according to Flemmont, to avoid attracting attention during less peaceful times. Welcome home, grandson, Flemmont's voice echoed in Harry's mind as he clutched the amber soul gem. Harry stepped through the threshold, feeling the family wards recognize and welcome him. The interior expanded beyond what the exterior suggested, a wizard space that held a cozy great room with exposed beams, a fully stocked kitchen, 3 bedrooms, and a study lined with bookshelves. Though dusty from disuse, it radiated warmth and safety. No one has been here since your father was 17, Flemmont explained. James preferred the main estate after we passed. Harry ran his fingers along a mantelpiece, leaving trails in the dust. Above it hung a family portrait, Fleamont and a kind-faced woman with his grandfather's chin, standing behind a teenaged boy who could only be Harry's father. "That's Euphemia, your grandmother," Fleamont said fondly. "And James at 16. Already planning how to convince Lily Evans that he wasn't, what did she call him, an arrogant tow-rag?" Harry laughed despite the tears welling in his eyes. "Did she really?" "Oh, frequently and with impressive vocabulary variations. Your mother was brilliant but decidedly unimpressed with your father's early attempts at courtship." These glimpses into his parents' lives were more precious than all the gold in his Gringotts vaults. Harry had spent 6 years with nothing but Aunt Petunia's bitter comments about his freak mother and her unemployed husband. Now he had a living connection to his true heritage. "I suppose we should clean up," Harry said, looking around at the dusty furniture. Fortunately, Fleamont's voice took on a professorial tone. "You're the head of House Potter now, with unrestricted magic use on family properties. Take out your wand." Harry retrieved the wand he'd purchased during his Gringotts visit, Holly and Phoenix Feather, which had sent a cascade of warm sparks up his arm the moment he'd touched it. The household cleaning charm is Scourgify. Circular wand motion, emphasis on the second syllable. Concentrate on what you want cleaned. Harry pointed his wand at the dusty floor. Scourgify. Nothing happened. More intent, Harry. Magic responds to will as much as words. Harry closed his eyes, imagining the dust vanishing, the wood gleaming beneath. Scourgify. This time, a wave of magic pulsed from his wand. When he opened his eyes, a 3-foot circle of floor gleamed spotlessly. "I did it. Well done. Now, let's talk strategy while you practice. Dumbledore will be looking for you by now." Harry moved around the cottage, cleaning as they talked. Each successful spell built his confidence, though sometimes his newly unbound magic would overpower simple charms, once turning a dusty curtain completely transparent instead of clean. "The Goblins said Dumbledore has tracking charms linked to my name and magical signature," Harry recalled, frowning at the see-through fabric. "How do we avoid those?" "Several ways," Fleamont mused. "First, this property is under Fidelius. Only someone who knows the secret can find it, and I'm the only living secret keeper, thanks to the soul gem preserving my consciousness. But I still need to leave sometimes," Harry pointed out. "To find the other gems. That's where disguise comes in, both magical and mundane. And we'll need to establish a new identity for your public appearances." Harry considered this as he successfully restored the curtain to its proper state. "What about Henry Peverell? The inheritance test showed I'm heir to the Peverell line too." "Clever. The Peverell name carries weight but has no living acknowledged heirs. With some basic appearance changes and the right documentation." By evening, Harry had cleaned the cottage, located the hidden potions lab beneath the study floor, and begun brewing a modified appearance elixir under Fleamont's expert guidance. "I thought potions required years of study," Harry remarked, carefully stirring the silver cauldron counterclockwise. "Most do. But I wasn't just a potioneer, I was a potter. Our family grimoire contains shortcuts developed over centuries. And this particular potion is a potter's specialty." Fleamont had been a revolutionary potioneer in his time, creating Sleek Easy's hair potion and quadrupling the family fortune. Under his meticulous instruction, Harry completed the potion just before midnight, a shimmering blue liquid that smelled faintly of mint and cedar. "Now what?" Harry asked, bottling the finished product. 3 drops in water before sleep. It's a temporary change, enough to mask your appearance without the instability of transfiguration or the magical signature of glamours. You'll need to reapply it weekly." Harry followed the instructions, drinking the diluted potion before crawling into the master bedroom. As he drifted toward sleep, he felt a curious tingling across his skin, a whisper of magic rearranging subtly. The last thing he heard was Fleamont's approving voice, "Rest well, grandson. Tomorrow, Henry Peverell makes his debut." Harry, now Henry, stared at his reflection in fascination. The changes were subtle but effective. His hair, still black, now lay flat and manageable. His famous scar had faded to near invisibility. His jaw seemed slightly more angular, his cheekbones higher. Most significantly, his eyes had shifted from Lily's vivid green to a deep hazel with gold flecks, eyes that strongly resembled Fleamont's own. "I look like a proper Potter," Harry marveled, turning his face from side to side. "With enough black family features to justify the Peveril connection," Fleamont agreed. "Doria's influence shows through nicely. Now for the final touch." From a drawer in the study, Harry retrieved wire-rimmed glasses with clear glass, a prop to further distinguish Henry Peveril from Harry Potter. "Perfect. Now, Gornick should be arriving soon with your new documentation." As if summoned by the thought, a soft chime indicated someone passing through the outer wards. Harry hurried to the front door to admit the young goblin, who looked uncharacteristically impressed as he entered. "The disguise is remarkably effective, Mr. Potter," Gornick observed, setting his briefcase on the dining table. "Even knowing who you are, I detect only family resemblance, not identity." "Please, call me Henry while I'm like this," Henry requested. "I need to get used to responding to it." Gornick nodded approvingly. "Sound thinking. I've brought everything you requested." The goblin removed several official-looking documents from his briefcase: birth certificate for Henry Arcturus Peveril, showing a birth date 3 years before Harry's actual one, educational records indicating home tutoring, Gringotts account information for a newly established Peveril vault, funded with a modest transfer from the Potter accounts, and most importantly, a legally registered wand permit for Henry Peveril. "The Ministry's record-keeping is embarrassingly susceptible to our influence," Gornick explained with a toothy smile. "These documents have been backdated and cross-referenced. For all official purposes, Henry Peveril exists and has since 1977. "Making me 9 instead of 6, Henry nodded. "Old enough to be seen alone occasionally without raising alarm." "Precisely. Director Silvertooth also sends this." Gornick handed over a small golden key. "It opens a communication vault. Place any message inside, and it will appear in the matching vault at Gringotts. We'll use it to coordinate the recovery of the remaining soul gems." "Ask about the tracking on Charles's gem," Fleamont prompted. Henry relayed the question, and Gornick's expression turned serious. "We've located it precisely. The soul gem of Charles Potter is in Dumbledore's secondary vault, higher security, but still accessible through a properly executed inheritance claim. However..." The goblin hesitated. "What's wrong?" Henry asked. "Dumbledore visited Gringotts yesterday. He attempted to remove the gem but was prevented by the initial audit lock. He seemed disturbed." Henry exchanged a mental glance with Fleamont, if such a thing were possible. "He knows something's happening. But not what, or who," Fleamont pointed out. "Otherwise, he'd have gone to the Dursleys immediately." "We should move quickly," Henry decided. "How soon can we arrange a retrieval?" 3 days, Gornick replied. "We must follow proper procedures to avoid alerting the Ministry. Dumbledore has considerable influence there." "Then we'll use those 3 days to gather intelligence," Henry said, already thinking ahead. "I need to understand why Dumbledore took the gems in the first place. What was he trying to prevent? Or what was he trying to achieve?" Fleamont added darkly. Diagon Alley bustled with midsummer activity as Henry made his first public appearance. With his altered features, new clothing purchased via owl order, and confident bearing coached by Fleamont, he moved through the wizarding shopping district unremarked, just another magical child running errands while his parents shopped elsewhere. "Flourish and blots first," Fleamont advised. "We need information about recent wizarding history. Then perhaps obscurest books for something less mainstream." Henry navigated the bookshop with purpose, selecting texts on the fall of Voldemort, recent Ministry politics, and significantly, a biography of Albus Dumbledore. At the counter, the clerk barely glanced at him, noting only that he had his father's eyes. As they exited with their purchases shrunk and tucked into a pocket, Fleamont directed Henry's attention to a narrow side street. Sorling's Tea Room. Popular with ministry workers and older witches who love to gossip. Perfect for eavesdropping. The tea room was exactly as Fleamont described, cozy, slightly shabby, and populated primarily by witches and wizards of middle age or older, gathered in conversational clusters. Henry ordered a pot of tea and scones, then settled at a corner table with a book propped open as cover for his listening. Absolutely shameful how the Wizengamot rubber stamps anything Dumbledore proposes these days, a witch in plum robes was saying nearby. The educational decree allowing Hogwarts to override parental curriculum objections is just the latest example. Now Bathilda, you know the man's only trying to maintain standards, her companion replied. After everything he did during the war, people trust his judgment. People are sheep, Bathilda sniffed. I knew Albus when he was in short pants, and he was as fallible then as now. Brilliant, yes, but with blind spots big enough to fly a dragon through. Henry casually turned a page, focusing on their conversation while appearing absorbed in his book. You're just upset about his portrayal of Grindelwald in that historical society presentation, the second witch said dismissively. I'm upset about historical revisionism, Bathilda corrected sharply. Gellert was many things, most of them terrible, but he and Albus were thick as thieves that summer. Inseparable. Planning their greater good revolution together until Ariana's tragedy. Henry nearly dropped his teacup. Greater good, the same justification Silvertooth had mentioned regarding Dumbledore's actions. Keep listening, Fleamont urged. This is valuable context. Ancient history, the second witch waved her hand. What matters is that Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald and helped stop you-know-who. Though I do wonder about those rumors. What rumors? Bathilda leaned forward eagerly. About the Potter boy. Millicent in Record says Dumbledore has been making inquiries at the Ministry, very quietly, about tracking charms and ward breaking. Something about ensuring the child's safety. Henry tensed, nearly giving himself away before Fleamont cautioned, easy. Sip your tea naturally. Look bored. Following his grandfather's guidance, Henry maintained his casual posture while his mind raced. Dumbledore was searching already, leveraging Ministry resources to find him. We need to accelerate our plans, Fleamont decided. And we need allies. The next afternoon found Henry in the British Museum, of all places. According to Fleamont, the museum's reading room had a hidden magical section accessible only to wizards and witches, and it contained archives of magical newspapers and periodicals not found elsewhere. We need to identify former members of Dumbledore's Order of the Phoenix, Fleamont explained as Henry navigated the magnificent domed reading room. Touch your wand to the lion carving on the third column and whisper, illumination reveals truth. Following these instructions, Henry watched in amazement as an unnoticed doorway shimmered into existence. He slipped through it into a smaller but equally impressive circular room, where scrolls and books floated gently between ornate shelves that spiraled up toward a starry enchanted ceiling. May I help you, young sir? Inquired an elderly wizard with spectacles that magnified his eyes to owl-like proportions. I'm researching the fall of you-know-who for a family history project, Henry explained with the story they'd prepared. Specifically, the organized resistance against him. Ah, the Order of the Phoenix, the archivist nodded knowingly. Section H, Shelf 17. The Prophet's War Period Archives and Moody's testimony transcripts should serve you well. Henry thanked him and located the materials, settling at a private reading desk with a stack of newspapers from 1979 to 1981. For hours, he methodically worked through the archives, creating a list of known order members with Fleamont's guidance. There, that photograph, Fleamont pointed out mentally. The wedding of James and Lily Potter. Look at the guests. The photograph showed his parents beaming in their wedding attire, surrounded by friends. Using a small magnifying glass, Henry could make out the faces and captions identifying several order members: Sirius Black, Best Man, Remus Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, Alice and Frank Longbottom, Minerva McGonagall, Alastair Moody. Sirius Black is in Azkaban for betraying them, Henry murmured, recalling information from his reading. The Longbottoms are in St. Mungo's after being tortured by Death Eaters. Pettigrew is dead. That leaves Lupin, McGonagall, and Moody as potential contacts. McGonagall is too close to Dumbledore, Fleamont assessed. Moody is paranoid and unpredictable. Remus Lupin might be our best option, he was devoted to your father. How do I find him? Let me think. Fleamont was silent for a moment. The full moon was 3 days ago. If his condition hasn't changed, he'll be recovered enough to be in public by now. His condition? Henry questioned. Lycanthropy. Remus is a werewolf, has been since childhood. It was a closely guarded secret, but James told us after they became friends. Henry absorbed this revelation with surprising equanimity. After everything else he'd learned recently, a friend of his father's being a werewolf seemed almost mundane. Would he be registered somewhere? Henry asked practically. Yes, but those records are restricted. However. Fleamont's tone turned thoughtful. Remus always struggled to find employment due to his condition. There's a magical employment agency in Horizon Alley that specializes in challenging placements. He might be registered there. With this lead, Henry carefully returned the archives and exited the magical reading room. By late afternoon, he stood before a weathered shopfront in Horizon Alley, a smaller commercial district branching off from Diagon Alley. The faded sign read, Matchright Employment Solutions, the right witch or wizard for any task. Inside, a harried-looking witch with ink-stained fingers barely glanced up from her paperwork. Looking for after-school employment? Come back in 2 years, dear. Actually, Henry said politely, I'm trying to locate someone for a family matter. Remus Lupin. It's regarding the Potter estate. That got her attention. She peered at him more closely. Potter estate, you say? And who might you be? Henry Peveril, representing the estate's interests, he replied smoothly. It wasn't entirely a lie. Mr. Lupin's location is confidential, she said, but her expression had softened slightly. However, he did authorize us to forward correspondence related to potential employment. Henry seized the opportunity. I'd be happy to leave a message for him. The witch provided parchment and a quill. Under Fleamont's guidance, Henry composed a carefully worded note, Mr. Lupin, matters concerning the Potter family require your attention. As a trusted friend of James and Lily, your insight would be invaluable. If you wish to discuss this further, please come to the Leaky Cauldron tomorrow at 2 p.m. Ask for a private room under the name Peveril. In friendship and trust, a representative of Potter interests P.S. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. The postscript, a reference to a phrase Fleamont said was meaningful among James and his friends, would hopefully convince Lupin of the letter's legitimacy without revealing too much. I'll see that he gets this today, the witch promised, sealing the note in an envelope. As Henry left the agency, Fleamont's voice sounded concerned. That was a calculated risk. If Lupin goes to Dumbledore, then we'll know he can't be trusted, Henry finished the thought. But something tells me he won't. The private room at the Leaky Cauldron was small but clean, with a table, 4 chairs, and magical windows showing an idyllic countryside that changed scenery every few minutes. Henry arrived early, placing concealment charms on the room under Fleamont's instruction and arranging protective measures, including an emergency portkey back to the hunting lodge. At precisely 2 p.m., a knock came at the door. Henry opened it to find a tall, thin man with light brown hair streaked prematurely with gray. His shabby robes hung loosely on his frame, and deep shadows underlined his amber eyes. Despite his worn appearance, he carried himself with quiet dignity. Mr. Peveril? Remus Lupin asked, his voice hoarse but gentle. Thank you for coming, Mr. Lupin, Henry replied, gesturing to a chair. Please, sit down. Lupin remained standing, wand held casually but noticeably at his side. Your note mentioned James and Lily Potter. I'd like to understand your connection before we proceed. That's fair, Henry acknowledged. He closed the door and activated the privacy charms. What I'm about to share must remain between us. It concerns Harry Potter's well-being. Lupin's expression sharpened. Is Harry in danger? Not immediate danger, no. But his situation is complicated. Henry chose his words carefully. Tell me, Mr. Lupin, when was the last time you saw Harry? A flash of pain crossed Lupin's features. I haven't seen him since he was a baby. Dumbledore established protective measures that limited access to him after Lily and James died. For his safety. And you accepted that? Never checking on him yourself? Lupin's jaw tightened. I requested visitation rights repeatedly. I was denied. Dumbledore insisted the blood protection from Lily's sacrifice required minimal magical contact until he was older. I see. Henry studied the man, sensing his genuine distress. And if I told you Harry Potter is no longer at his relative's home? That he discovered his inheritance and the theft of his family's magical artifacts? Lupin went very still. I would ask how you know this, and what your interest is. Instead of answering directly, Henry reached into his pocket and withdrew Fleamont's soul gem. He placed it on the table between them. Do you recognize this type of artifact, Mr. Lupin? Lupin leaned closer, eyes widening. That's impossible. A soul gem? I thought they were all destroyed during the war. Not destroyed. Stolen. By Albus Dumbledore. For a long moment, Lupin stared at the gem, conflict evident on his face. Then, with visible effort, he met Henry's gaze directly. Who are you, really? He asked quietly. No Peveril would have access to Potter family artifacts. Henry smiled slightly. You're right. He removed his prop glasses and concentrated, allowing Fleamont's potion to temporarily fade just enough to reveal his true eyes, Lily's unmistakable green. Lupin staggered backward as if struck. Harry, he breathed, disbelief and hope warring in his voice. Hello, Moony, Henry said, using the nickname Fleamont had mentioned. I think we have a lot to talk about. The transformation in Lupin was immediate and profound. He sank into a chair, trembling slightly, eyes never leaving Henry's face as the disguise reasserted itself. How? He whispered. How is this possible? You're so young, and yet. I had help, Henry explained, tapping the soul gem. My grandfather has been teaching me. Fleamont, Lupin breathed in understanding. The soul gems contain ancestral consciousness. James told us about them once, though I never saw one. They were kept in the deepest Potter vault. Until Dumbledore removed them days after my parents' deaths, Henry added. I only recovered this one through a Gringotts audit. The others remain hidden. Lupin ran a hand through his graying hair. This is overwhelming. Harry, or should I call you Henry while you're disguised? Henry in public, Harry in private, he confirmed. You've clearly gone to extraordinary lengths. But why? What prompted all this? Harry explained everything, the Gringotts letter, the audit, discovering the blocks on his magic, learning about his inheritance and the soul gems. As he spoke, Lupin's expression cycled through shock, outrage, and finally grim resolve. The blood wards at the Dursleys. Lupin began. Were real but unnecessary, Harry finished. The Potter properties have protections that have kept generations of my family safe. Dumbledore chose to place me with magic-hating relatives instead. And you believe he stole the soul gems to prevent you from claiming your heritage? From learning about magic before he deemed appropriate? Harry shrugged. That's one possibility. We don't know his full motives yet. That's partly why I contacted you. Lupin was silent for a long moment, clearly processing everything. Finally, he looked up with determined eyes. "What do you need from me, Harry?" "Information, primarily. About the Order of the Phoenix, about my parents, about Dumbledore during the war. And possibly assistance with recovering the remaining soul gems." "You have it," Lupin said without hesitation. "James and Lily were my closest friends. Their son is my priority, not Dumbledore's plans, whatever they may be." "Ask about Sirius Black," Fleamont prompted suddenly. "There's something else," Harry said, leaning forward. "Tell me about Sirius Black. The records say he betrayed my parents, but—" Lupin's face darkened. Sirius was James's best friend, his brother in all but blood. His betrayal destroyed everything. He shook his head. "Even now, I can't reconcile the Sirius I knew with what happened." "You have doubts?" Harry pressed. I don't know. There was no trial. The evidence seemed overwhelming. 12 Muggles dead, Peter killed, Sirius laughing madly at the scene. Lupin's voice grew distant. "But sometimes I remember how he was with you, so protective, so loving. How he and James were inseparable from the moment they met. And I wonder." "We should investigate further," Harry decided. "But first, we need to recover the next soul gem. Charles Potter's. It's in another of Dumbledore's vaults at Gringotts." Lupin straightened. "When?" "Tomorrow. The goblins have arranged everything. Having an adult wizard with me would provide additional cover." "I'll be there," Lupin promised. Then, hesitantly, he added, "Harry, would it be alright if I—" Understanding the unspoken request, Harry stood and moved around the table. Without a word, he allowed himself to be gathered into a gentle embrace. Lupin held him carefully, as though afraid he might break or disappear. "You have Lily's courage," the man whispered hoarsely. "And James's determination. They would be so proud of you." For the first time since this adventure began, Harry felt tears threatening. He had Fleamont's guidance and memories, but this was different. This was someone who had known his parents personally, had held him as a baby, had loved him before everything was taken away. "Thank you for coming," Harry said when they finally separated. "I wasn't sure you would." Lupin smiled sadly. "I failed you once by accepting Dumbledore's restrictions. I won't make that mistake again." The following morning found Harry, once again disguised as Henry, and Remus Lupin entering Gringotts through the silver doors. Gornick met them immediately, leading them to a different area of the bank than Harry had visited previously. "The Inheritance Council is assembled," the young goblin informed them quietly. "Dumbledore was summoned as vault holder but declined to attend. His proxy will observe instead." "Proxy?" Harry questioned. "Minerva McGonagall." Harry exchanged an alarmed glance with Lupin. McGonagall had been on their list of Order members loyal to Dumbledore. Her presence complicated matters. "She'll recognize me," Lupin murmured. "We served in the Order together." "That may work to our advantage," Harry replied thoughtfully. "You're known to be loyal to my parents' memory. Your presence legitimizes our claim." Gornick led them into a circular chamber dominated by a raised platform. Seated on tiered benches were 7 elderly goblins wearing formal regalia. On a separate bench sat a stern-looking witch in emerald robes, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. Professor McGonagall's eyes widened slightly at the sight of Lupin, but she maintained her composure, giving him a small nod of acknowledgement. "The Inheritance Council recognizes Remus John Lupin and Henry Arcturus Peverell, representing the interests of House Potter," announced the chief counselor. "State your claim." Lupin stepped forward. "We seek the return of the Charles Potter Soul Gem, currently held in Vault 713 belonging to Albus Dumbledore. As a family artifact bound by blood magic, it rightfully belongs to the Potter heir." McGonagall frowned. "Mr. Lupin, while I respect your connection to the Potters, I must question under what authority you make this claim." Harry Potter is under the guardianship of his relatives, with Albus Dumbledore as his magical guardian. With respect, Professor, Lupin replied carefully, our claim is made under Section 17 of the Ancient Artifacts Act, which specifies that blood-bound family heirlooms cannot be legally possessed by non-family members without explicit consent from the family head or heir. And you have such consent? McGonagall asked skeptically. We do. Lupin gestured to Harry, who stepped forward. Careful now, Fleamont cautioned. We need the gem without revealing your identity. Harry placed a sealed parchment on the platform. This document contains authorization from the Potter heir, magically verified by Gringotts inheritance protocols. For security reasons, the heir's identity remains protected, but the magical signature is authenticated. McGonagall examined the document with narrowed eyes. This is highly irregular. Headmaster Dumbledore secured these artifacts for safekeeping during a dangerous period. Their return should be conducted with proper oversight. The Council acknowledges the concerns, the Chief Goblin interjected, but magical inheritance law is clear. If the artifact responds to the blood claim, ownership must be recognized. At a signal from the Chief Counselor, 2 armored goblins entered carrying an ornate wooden box. They placed it on the platform and stepped back. The box was carved with runes that glowed faintly blue in the chamber's light. The claiming ritual may commence, the Chief Counselor announced. Blood of the petitioner is required. This was the delicate part. Harry stepped forward, aware of McGonagall's sharp gaze upon him. Lupin moved slightly, partially blocking her view as Harry extended his hand over the box. A goblin ceremonially pricked his finger with a silver needle. 3 drops of blood fell onto the box's central rune, which flared brilliant gold upon contact. The box's lid swung open, revealing a deep blue gem shot through with silver filaments. The blood claim is validated, the Chief Counselor declared. The artifact recognizes its rightful heir. Harry carefully lifted the gem from the box, feeling an immediate connection, different from Fleamont's gem, but unmistakably family magic. Before he could retreat, however, McGonagall rose from her seat. Young man, she called sharply, a moment of your time. Harry froze, acutely aware of both Lupin and Fleamont mentally urging caution. Yes, Professor, he replied, keeping his voice steady. You seem remarkably young to be involved in such complex magical proceedings, McGonagall observed, approaching the platform. May I ask your connection to this matter? Family association, Professor, Harry answered truthfully. The Peverills and Potters share distant ancestry. McGonagall's keen eyes studied him intently. Indeed? How curious that I've never heard of a Peveril your age. I generally keep track of potential future students. I've been educated privately, ma'am. My family prefers discretion. Something in McGonagall's expression shifted, a flash of recognition that made Harry's heart skip. Had the disguise slipped? Had she somehow sensed his true identity? Your eyes, she said softly. They remind me of someone I once knew. Before she could pursue this further, Lupin intervened smoothly. Professor, perhaps we could discuss this further at another time. We have additional appointments at the bank. McGonagall hesitated, then nodded curtly. Very well. Please inform Headmaster Dumbledore that I'll be providing a complete report on these proceedings. Her gaze returned to Harry. Including my observations about young Mr. Peveril. As McGonagall departed, Harry clutched the soul gem tightly, feeling as though he'd narrowly avoided disaster. That was too close, Lupin muttered as they followed Gornick from the chamber. Minerva McGonagall doesn't miss much. We need to accelerate our plans, Harry agreed. Once she reports to Dumbledore. He'll start looking for Henry Peveril, Lupin finished grimly. And it won't take him long to make connections. The soul gem, Fleamont reminded Harry. Bond with it as soon as possible. Charles will provide additional guidance. Back at the Potter hunting lodge, Harry sat cross-legged on the study floor, the 2 soul gems placed before him on a velvet cloth. Lupin watched from a respectful distance as Harry prepared for the bonding ritual. "Are you certain you want me present for this?" Lupin asked. "The connection with ancestral magic is typically private." "I want you here," Harry confirmed. "You knew my father. You're part of my connection to my family." Touched by this declaration, Lupin nodded and settled into a nearby chair. Harry picked up the deep blue gem, feeling its magic pulse against his palm. Following the same instinct that had guided him with Fleamont's gem, he pressed it to his forehead and closed his eyes. The connection formed differently this time, less immediate, more like slowly sinking into a cool pond. Images formed gradually, a distinguished-looking man with Harry's jawline, fighting alongside others in what appeared to be the war against Grindelwald, the same man teaching a young James to fly a broom, solemn conversations with Dumbledore during the rise of Voldemort. "Harry." The voice was deeper than Fleamont's, more formal in its cadence. "My great-grandson." At last. "Great-grandfather Charles," Harry acknowledged aloud. "You've done well to find us." Dumbledore's actions were unexpected. Concerning. "Do you know why he took the gems?" "Not with certainty. But I have suspicions. My gem was accessed several times after he took it. He asked questions about family protections, about James and Lily's defenses, about ancient blood magic. And about Voldemort's methods." Harry opened his eyes, maintaining the connection while looking at Lupin. "Charles says Dumbledore was researching Voldemort's methods and blood protections." Lupin leaned forward. "That aligns with what the Order knew. Dumbledore was obsessed with understanding how Voldemort achieved his apparent immortality. He believed that knowledge was crucial to ultimately defeating him." "There's something else," Charles continued. "Dumbledore specifically asked about soul magic, old rituals, dangerous ones, that could bind a soul to the physical plane even after death." Harry relayed this, watching Lupin's expression grow troubled. "Soul magic is among the darkest arts," Lupin explained. "It's barely mentioned even in restricted texts. If Dumbledore was researching that, he believes Voldemort isn't truly gone," Harry concluded. A cold certainty settled in his stomach. "That's why he took the gems. Not just to keep me ignorant of my heritage, but because he needed their knowledge. And perhaps to keep them from you," Fleamont added, his voice joining the mental conversation as Harry held both gems. "If Voldemort found a way to cheat death using soul magic, Dumbledore might fear him gaining access to the Potter family knowledge through you." "Through me?" Harry repeated, confused. "Why would Voldemort have access to me specifically?" A heavy silence fell, broken eventually by Lupin's careful voice. "There was a prophecy, Harry. James and Lily told me only that it existed, not its contents. But it concerned you and Voldemort." "A prophecy," Harry echoed, feeling pieces clicking into place. "That's why he came after my parents." "After me?" "We need Doria's gem," Charles said suddenly. "My wife was a Black before our marriage. She understood dark magic better than any Potter, studied it to defend against it. If anyone would recognize what Dumbledore fears." "Where is Doria's gem?" Harry asked aloud. "Department of Mysteries," both ancestral voices answered simultaneously. "The Hall of Prophecy." The unexpected knock came 3 days later, as Harry and Lupin were reviewing maps of the Ministry of Magic in preparation for their next retrieval. "Are you expecting anyone?" Lupin asked, already drawing his wand. Harry shook his head, activating the lodge's external viewing charm, a magical equivalent of a security camera that showed the cottage's surroundings. Standing at the boundary of the property, just outside the Fidelius protection, was a tall figure in black robes. Severus Snape, Lupin identified the visitor, his voice tight with old animosity. How could he have found this place? Harry wondered, alarmed. He couldn't, not without the secret, Fleamont confirmed. He must be here on other business or by extraordinary coincidence. I should send him away, Lupin said, moving toward the door. Wait. Harry held up a hand, considering the situation. Snape was in the Order, wasn't he? And he's at Hogwarts now, close to Dumbledore. He was a Death Eater who turned spy, Lupin corrected. And yes, he's now potions master at Hogwarts. But Harry, Severus hated your father. Their enmity was legendary. And yet, Charles interjected in Harry's mind, Dumbledore trusted him implicitly during the war. Enough to make him a spy within Voldemort's inner circle. Harry made a decision. Disguise me completely, not as Henry Peveril, but someone unrecognizable. I want to hear what he wants. Lupin looked unhappy but complied, casting advanced concealment charms that transformed Harry into a nondescript middle-aged wizard. Then he approached the boundary, Harry following at a discreet distance. Severus, Lupin greeted coldly. This is an unexpected visit. Snape's sallow face showed equal distaste. Lupin. I see rumors of your involvement in recent events weren't exaggerated. What do you want? Lupin demanded. To deliver a warning. Snape's dark eyes flicked briefly to Harry's disguised form before returning to Lupin. Dumbledore knows Potter is missing. McGonagall recognized certain, familial traits, in your young companion at Gringotts. The headmaster has mobilized the remaining Order to search for the boy. And why are you telling us this? Lupin asked suspiciously. Snape's expression remained impassive. Because I made a vow to protect Lily Potter's son. A vow that supersedes my obligations to Dumbledore. Harry couldn't contain his surprise. You knew my mother, he asked, momentarily forgetting his disguise. Snape's gaze snapped to him, eyes narrowing dangerously. Drop the pathetic concealment. If we're to have this conversation, Potter, let it be without insulting pretenses. Lupin started to object, but Harry raised a hand to silence him. With a nod, he allowed the disguise to fade, revealing his true appearance, not Henry Peveril, but Harry Potter himself. Something flickered across Snape's face, pain, recognition, old grief quickly masked by his habitual scowl. Yes, I knew your mother. We were friends. Once. And you made a vow to protect me? Why? If you hated my father, my reasons are my own, Snape cut him off sharply. What matters is that Dumbledore's search is intensifying. He's convinced himself that you're in danger without his protections. I was in danger with them, Harry countered. My magic bound, my heritage hidden, living with people who despised magic. Snape's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted slightly. The Dursleys. Yes. An oversight. I attempted to bring to the headmaster's attention. You checked on me? Harry asked, surprised. Once. Years ago. I observed enough to form concerns, which Dumbledore dismissed. Snape's voice was clinically detached, but Harry sensed underlying anger. He insisted the blood protection outweighed all other considerations. Lupin and Harry exchanged glances. This was unexpected, an ally from a wholly unanticipated quarter. What does Dumbledore know about the soul gems? Harry asked directly. Snape's eyebrows rose fractionally. So you've discovered those. Interesting. He believes they contain crucial information about the Dark Lord's methods of achieving immortality. He's been systematically questioning them for years. Questioning my ancestors about Voldemort? Harry clarified, ignoring Snape's slight flinch at the name. Yes. The Potter line had extensive knowledge of obscure magics, particularly soul-based protections. The headmaster believes this knowledge is vital to preventing the Dark Lord's return. He's telling the truth, Charles confirmed in Harry's mind. Dumbledore questioned me repeatedly about ancient soul magic, trying to understand something he called anchors. But why keep this from me? Harry pressed. Why not explain once I was old enough? Snape's mouth twisted in what might have been a bitter smile. Dumbledore plays his cards very close. He reveals only what he deems necessary, when he deems it appropriate. It's a strategy that served well during the war but has limitations in peacetime. And now? Lupin asked. What's your stake in this, Severus? My stake is fulfilling my vow to protect Lily's son, Snape replied coldly. Which currently means warning him that Dumbledore has employed tracking specialists from Eastern Europe to locate him. They arrive tomorrow. Harry felt a chill. Why are you helping us instead of him? For a long moment, Snape was silent, his dark eyes unreadable. Finally, he spoke with careful precision. The headmaster believes your safety lies in ignorance and isolation until you're of Hogwarts age. I believe. He seemed to struggle with the words. I believe Lily would have wanted her son to know his heritage. To have choices. She valued knowledge above almost all else. It was perhaps the most personal statement Harry had heard from the dour man. He nodded slowly. Thank you for the warning. We'll take precautions. Snape inclined his head slightly. I can provide limited assistance without compromising my position. Misinformation about sightings, perhaps. Delayed communications. Why risk Dumbledore's trust? Lupin asked, still skeptical. Snape's gaze returned to Harry, focusing specifically on his eyes, Lily's eyes. Some debts transcend current allegiances, Lupin. Even you should understand that concept. With that cryptic statement, Snape turned to leave, then paused. Without looking back, he added, the Department of Mysteries has enhanced security around the prophecy room since your ancestor's gem was placed there. You'll need specialized assistance to access it. Contact Mundungus Fletcher, a disreputable but useful individual. Tell him the Half-Blood Prince sent you. Before either could respond, Snape disappeared with a sharp crack of apparition. Well, Lupin said after a stunned silence, that was unexpected. Harry nodded, still processing this strange encounter. Do you trust him? Trust Severus Snape? Lupin gave a hollow laugh. Not completely. Never completely. But in this specific matter, protecting you from those who would control you, I believe his intentions align with ours. The enemy of my enemy, Fleamont mused. A temporary alliance of convenience. But potentially valuable, Charles added. Especially if Dumbledore truly has brought in specialized trackers. We must accelerate our timeline. Harry looked at the map spread across the table. Then we move immediately on the Department of Mysteries. Tomorrow night. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Rather than attempting to breach the Department of Mysteries directly, a nearly impossible task, they would intercept Doria's soul gem during its weekly transfer to the Research Division. Mundungus Fletcher, a shifty-eyed wizard with the perpetual smell of tobacco and cheap spirits clinging to his clothes, had provided the crucial intelligence in exchange for a modest payment and a promise of future consideration from House Potter. They move the special artifacts every Tuesday night at 11:30, he'd explained in the grimy back room of the White Wyvern pub. Minimal staff, standard security protocols. Your best chance, Governor. Now, disguised once again as Henry Peveril, Harry waited with Lupin in a service corridor deep within the Ministry of Magic. They'd entered during normal business hours using visitor passes, then concealed themselves in an unused office until the building emptied. Navigating to their current position had required all of Lupin's knowledge of the Ministry layout and several close calls with late-working employees. Remember, Lupin whispered, checking his watch, we're only here for the gem. No detours, no investigating the prophecy itself. That would trigger additional security measures. Harry nodded, trying to control his nerves. The soul gems of Fleamont and Charles were safely hidden at the lodge, bringing them into the Ministry would have been too risky. Without their direct guidance, Harry felt strangely vulnerable, though their prior instructions echoed in his mind. The sound of approaching footsteps silenced their whispered conversation. Harry and Lupin pressed themselves into the shadows of an alcove, Lupin's disillusionment charm rendering them nearly invisible as two Ministry workers passed by, levitating a sealed container between them. Third transfer this week, one complained. Department of Mysteries needs to make up its mind about these research artifacts. At least it's the last one tonight, his companion replied. Just this gem thing, then we're done. Harry felt a surge of excitement. Right on schedule, as Fletcher had promised. He glanced at Lupin, who nodded once, raising his wand. As the workers rounded the corner ahead, Lupin whispered, "Confundo." The spell hit both men simultaneously. They stopped walking, expressions going blank and slightly confused. "You've completed your delivery," Lupin said clearly, approaching them with Harry close behind. "Everything went smoothly. You're ready to return to your department and sign out for the night." The workers nodded vaguely, lowering the container to the floor. "Completed the delivery," one mumbled. "Going to sign out now." They wandered off down the corridor, leaving the sealed container unattended. Harry approached it cautiously, examining the locks and wards. "Standard security seals," he noted. "Nothing ancestral blood can't open." Following the procedure they'd practiced, Harry pressed his palm to the container's lid and whispered, "Blood of Potter seeks its own." The seals glowed briefly before melting away. Inside, nestled in protective padding, lay a deep green gem veined with silver and black, Doria Potter's soul gem. "Got it," Harry breathed, carefully lifting the gem. "Hurry," Lupin urged. "The Confundus won't last long. They'll eventually realize something's wrong." Harry pocketed the gem and Lupin resealed the container with a decoy transfigured to resemble the original. They had just turned to leave when a new voice spoke from the shadows. "Fascinating security breach. Most elegant." Harry and Lupin froze as a tall figure in dark robes stepped into view, wand extended. "Not Ministry security, something far worse." Antonin Dolohov, Lupin identified the newcomer, pushing Harry behind him protectively. "Death Eater. Supposedly imprisoned in Azkaban." Dolohov smiled unpleasantly, revealing several missing teeth. "Some of us have influential friends, Lupin. Friends interested in Potter family artifacts." "How did you know?" Harry began, but Lupin cut him off with a warning squeeze to his shoulder. "The Dark Lord had many contingencies," Dolohov continued, circling them predatorily. "Many loyal servants watching key locations. Your little disturbance at Gringotts raised flags. Old flags, but still effective." Harry's mind raced. Not Dumbledore's people then, something else entirely. Former Death Eaters, still active, still monitoring for signs of activity related to Voldemort. "The boy isn't Potter," Lupin said evenly. "He's a Peveril descendant helping recover stolen family heirlooms." Dolohov laughed coldly. "A convincing disguise, I'll grant you. But our sources are certain. This is Potter's brat. And he has something my associates very much want." Without warning, Dolohov attacked, not with a standard spell, but a vicious purple flame that sliced through the air toward them. Lupin barely managed to conjure a shield in time, the impact still driving him backward into Harry. "Run!" Lupin gasped, already returning fire with a rapid series of stunners and binding hexes. "Get to the exit point." But Harry couldn't leave Lupin alone against this clearly dangerous opponent. Instead, he drew his own wand, recalling the defensive spells Fleamont and Charles had taught him. "Protego," he shouted as another purple flame shot toward them, this time aimed at him specifically. His shield held, but just barely. Dolohov looked momentarily surprised at the strength of Harry's magic, then smiled again, more menacingly. Impressive for a child. But not enough. The Death Eater began a complex wand movement that Lupin recognized with horror. "No," the werewolf shouted, throwing himself forward with inhuman speed, a remnant of his lycanthropic nature even between full moons. What followed happened too quickly for Harry to process completely. Lupin and Dolohov exchanged a furious barrage of spells, the corridor lighting up with multicolored flashes that left scorch marks on the walls. Lupin fought with a ferocity Harry hadn't imagined the gentleman possessed, but Dolohov matched him with practiced brutality. Crucio! Dolohov finally shouted, catching Lupin with the unforgivable when he stumbled over debris from a blasted wall panel. Lupin collapsed, his body contorting in agony as screams tore from his throat. The sight broke through Harry's shock. Fury unlike anything he'd ever felt surged through him, along with something else, power, raw and instinctive, fed by the soul gems he carried. Enough! Harry roared, and his magic responded explosively. A wave of pure force erupted from him, slamming Dolohov against the far wall with bone-crushing impact. The Cruciatus curse broke, leaving Lupin gasping on the floor. But Harry wasn't finished. As Dolohov struggled to regain his footing, Harry advanced, his magic swirling visibly around him like a green-gold aura. "You will not touch him again," Harry said, his voice unnaturally calm despite the magical storm surrounding him. "You will not report what you've seen. You will forget this encounter entirely." "Legilimens," Harry whispered, acting on knowledge that wasn't his own, ancestral magic guiding his actions. He locked eyes with the dazed Death Eater and felt himself pushing into the man's mind, locating recent memories and systematically erasing himself and Lupin from them. When he finished, Dolohov slumped unconscious to the floor. Harry stood over him, trembling not with fear but with the aftermath of channeling such powerful magic. "Harry," Lupin's weak voice called from behind him. "We need to go. Now." The urgency in Lupin's tone penetrated Harry's strange trance. He turned to find his father's friend struggling to his feet, pale and shaking from the effects of the Cruciatus. "Are you all right?" Harry asked, hurrying to support him. "I'll manage," Lupin grimaced. "But that magical outburst, every sensor in the Ministry will have detected it. We have minutes at most before this place is swarming with horrors." Harry nodded, helping Lupin toward their planned escape route, a service elevator that connected to the public visitors' entrance. Behind them, Dolohov remained unconscious, his memory of their encounter now a confused jumble that would reveal nothing useful. They barely made it out before the first aura response team arrived, operating to safety from a calculated distance outside the Ministry's anti-transportation wards. As they recovered in the safety of the hunting lodge, Harry finally had time to examine Doria's soul gem properly. The green gem pulsed with contained power as he pressed it to his forehead. The connection formed differently than with his grandfather's, sharper, more analytical, distinctly feminine in its energy. "Well done, great-grandson," Doria Potter's crisp voice filled his mind. Though perhaps with more dramatics than strictly necessary. "Great-grandmother Doria," Harry greeted, relief flooding him. "We found you." "Indeed. And not a moment too soon, from what I gather scanning your recent memories. That memory charm on Dolohov was exceptional work, though you shouldn't have been able to perform such magic at your age." "I don't think it was entirely me," Harry admitted. "I felt guided." "Family magic," Doria confirmed. "The Potter line has always had an affinity for mind arts, though James never developed it. Now, we have much to discuss, particularly about Dumbledore's interest in soul magic and this prophecy concerning you and the Dark Lord." As Doria's consciousness integrated with his awareness, sharing her considerable knowledge of ancient magical practices and dark arts countermeasures, Harry felt a growing certainty. With 3 ancestral guides now supporting him, the balance had shifted significantly in his favor. Still, the encounter with Dolohov troubled him deeply. Not just former Death Eaters, but escaped or released ones were monitoring for signs of Potter activity. And someone besides Dumbledore, was interested in the soul gems. Which meant they now faced opposition from 2 directions, Dumbledore and his order seeking to protect him by controlling him, and Voldemort's former servants pursuing their own agenda. The chessboard had just become considerably more complex. In the headmaster's office at Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore stood by the window, gazing out at the moonlit grounds. Behind him, Minerva McGonagall and Severus Snape sat in uncomfortable silence, waiting for him to speak. Finally, Dumbledore turned, his normally twinkling eyes somber. "The magical surge at the Ministry confirms it. Harry Potter has not only left his relatives protection but has gained access to abilities he should not possess for years to come. The boy was at the ministry. McGonagall asked, alarmed. Why? The Department of Mysteries reported the substitution of a research artifact with a transfigured replica, Dumbledore explained. The third Potter soul gem, I believe. Snape's expression remained carefully neutral. And the intruders? Escaped before Aurors arrived. But Antonin Dolohov was found unconscious at the scene. McGonagall gasped. Dolohov? He should be in Azkaban. Indeed, Dumbledore agreed grimly. His presence suggests another layer to this situation, one I've feared since Voldemort's fall. You believe the Dark Lord's followers are also searching for Potter, Snape stated flatly. I believe they're searching for anything that might aid their master's return, Dumbledore corrected. The Potter soul gems contain ancient magical knowledge that could be catastrophic in the wrong hands. McGonagall looked troubled. Albus, perhaps it's time to be more forthcoming with us. Why exactly did you remove those artifacts from the Potter vaults? What do they contain that's so dangerous? Dumbledore sighed heavily. The Potter lineage specialized in protective magic, particularly soul-based protections. I believe Voldemort used a corrupted form of this magic to ensure his survival. The soul gems contain information that could help us understand how to truly defeat him when he inevitably returns. And the boy? Snape asked quietly. What is his role in this? A shadow passed over Dumbledore's features. More central than any of us would wish, Severus. The prophecy cannot be changed by keeping the boy ignorant, Snape interrupted, with uncharacteristic sharpness. Perhaps if Potter understood the stakes, he's 6 years old. McGonagall protested. He's 6 years old and has already escaped the safeguards we established, accessed his family vaults, removed powerful magical blocks, and apparently bested a Death Eater, Dumbledore countered. Harry Potter is not an ordinary child. Then stop treating him as one, Snape suggested coldly. Either as helpless or as a pawn. Dumbledore's gaze sharpened. You have strong opinions on this matter, Severus. Stronger than I would have expected given your history with James Potter. My concerns are pragmatic, Snape replied smoothly. An untrained Potter wandering wizarding Britain with access to ancient magical knowledge is a disaster waiting to happen. He should be found and properly educated, not simply returned to his previous ignorance. McGonagall nodded slowly. I agree with Severus, Albus. Perhaps it's time to adapt our approach. Dumbledore considered his colleague's words, stroking his long beard thoughtfully. You may be right. The situation has changed more rapidly than I anticipated. He straightened, decision made. Minerva, contact our associates in the Order. We need to locate Harry as quickly as possible, but emphasize that he's to be approached with care, not coercion. And once found, she pressed. We offer him truth, Dumbledore said simply. At least, as much truth as a child his age can safely bear. And we offer him choices, within reasonable boundaries. He won't trust you, Snape observed dispassionately. Not after discovering the blocks on his magic and the removal of his family artifacts. Perhaps not, Dumbledore acknowledged. But he might trust his parents' friends. Remus Lupin has already aligned himself with the boy, it seems. And there are others who love James and Lily who would gladly help their son. As McGonagall departed to make the necessary contacts, Dumbledore turned to Snape with penetrating eyes. You've been unusually vocal in this discussion, Severus. Is there something specific troubling you? Snape met the headmaster's gaze unflinchingly. Only that we seem to be repeating past mistakes. Prophecies have a way of fulfilling themselves precisely because of our attempts to control their outcomes. A philosophical observation from an unexpected source, Dumbledore noted mildly. But then, you always were more complex than others gave you credit for. Snape rose to leave, his black robes swirling around him. At the door, he paused. The boy has Lily's eyes. And perhaps more of her nature than we've accounted for. With that enigmatic statement, he departed, leaving Dumbledore alone with his troubled thoughts and the soft trilling of Fawkes from his perch. "What would you do, old friend?" Dumbledore asked the Phoenix quietly. "When the pieces move before their time, when the board changes without warning?" Fawkes offered no answer beyond a melancholy song that echoed through the circular office, haunting and beautiful and somehow profoundly sad. Outside the castle, summer storm clouds gathered on the horizon, promising change. Chapter 3, Trials of Blood and Magic. A light summer rain pattered against the windows of the Potter hunting lodge as Harry studied the maps and notes spread across the ancient oak table. 3 soul gems, Fleamont's amber, Charles's sapphire, and Doria's emerald, rested in a triangular formation at the center, their internal fires casting dancing patterns on the parchment. "Hogwarts during summer break," Harry murmured, tracing the castle's outline on the aged map. "It's our best chance to find my parents' gems." "A considerable risk," Remus cautioned, leaning against the stone mantelpiece. 6 weeks of proper meals and reduced stress had improved his appearance remarkably, though silver still threaded his light brown hair. "The castle is never truly empty, even during holidays." "The castle knows its heirs," Doria's precise voice echoed in Harry's mind. "Gryffindor blood runs in your veins. The stones themselves will aid you if properly addressed." The voices of his ancestors had become familiar companions over the past month, Fleamont's patient guidance, Charles's strategic wisdom, and Doria's analytical brilliance forming a council of advisors unlike any other. Their knowledge had accelerated Harry's magical education at an extraordinary pace, though his actual magical strength remained that of a remarkably gifted child, not the adult wizard he sometimes felt himself becoming mentally. "Dumbledore hid my father's soul gem inside something called the Mirror of Erist," Harry said, reviewing their intelligence. "And my mother's." He frowned. "We still don't know exactly where hers is. According to Snape's information, it's likely in Dumbledore's private quarters," Remus supplied. "Behind wards that respond only to him." Harry nodded, absently rubbing the lightning scar on his forehead. It had been tingling more frequently lately, especially during his magical training. Another mystery to solve, but one that would have to wait. "We have another problem," he said, pushing a newspaper across the table. "Dumbledore has gone public with my disappearance." The headline of the Daily Prophet blared dramatically, "Boy Who lived missing, Dumbledore appeals for information." Beneath was a photograph of Dumbledore looking gravely concerned, and beside it, a baby picture of Harry, the only one publicly available. "A calculated move," Remus observed grimly. "He's rallying public sentiment and justifying a wider search." "It limits our movement," Harry agreed. "Henry Peveril can still operate in public for now, but scrutiny will increase. McGonagall's suspicions have likely spread to others in the Order." The fireplace flared green suddenly, causing both to reach for their wands before a familiar voice called out. "It's Severus. May I come through?" Harry nodded to Remus, who adjusted the wards to permit entry. The tall, sallow-faced potions master stepped from the flames, brushing ash from his perpetually black robes. His expression was even more severe than usual. "The Prophet headline is merely the beginning," he announced without preamble. "Dumbledore has convinced the Ministry to issue a formal search authorization. Aurors will be empowered to investigate any properties with connections to Potter allies or family." "That's problematic," Harry frowned. "This lodge is under Fidelius, but the main Potter estate isn't. Nor are the black properties that might be considered accessible to you through your godfather," Snape added. The mention of Sirius Black still provoked complicated emotions in Harry. Their investigation into his godfather's case had revealed disturbing inconsistencies, chief among them the complete absence of a trial transcript or even basic interrogation records. However, gaining access to a maximum security prisoner in Azkaban had proven beyond their current capabilities. "What's Dumbledore's endgame here?" Harry asked, studying Snape's impassive face. "He must know a public hunt will only drive me deeper into hiding." Snape's dark eyes revealed nothing. The headmaster plays multiple angles simultaneously. The public search satisfies the ministry and positions him as the concerned guardian. Meanwhile, his true efforts proceed through more, discreet channels. The order, Remus supplied. Indeed. And other specialists with particular talents for finding people who don't wish to be found. Snape hesitated slightly. There's more. The incident at the ministry with Dolohov has attracted unwelcome attention from certain quarters. Former Death Eaters are beginning to communicate again, carefully, but with increasing frequency. Harry exchanged concerned glances with Remus. They're looking for me too. Not precisely, Snape corrected. They're looking for signs of the Dark Lord's potential return, which your unusual activities might represent to them. Your parents' defiance and your subsequent survival made you a figure of particular interest in their circles. Politics makes for strange bedfellows, Charles observed dryly in Harry's mind. Death Eaters, Dumbledore, ministry officials, all pursuing you for different reasons. And all potentially blocking our path to James and Lily's gems, Fleamont added. Harry straightened, decision crystallizing. Then we move tonight. While Dumbledore is occupied with coordinating the public search, we'll infiltrate Hogwarts. Snape raised an eyebrow. An ambitious timeline. Necessity, not ambition, Harry countered. Every day increases the risk. Professor Snape, can you provide access? The address seemed to catch Snape off guard momentarily. He inclined his head slightly. I can guide you through the less monitored passages. However, Dumbledore will have additional protections around anything relating to your parents. We'll handle those when we reach them, Harry said with more confidence than he felt. Remus, would you make the final preparations? I need a moment with my ancestors. As Remus and Snape moved to the study to review castle access points, Harry gathered the 3 soul gems and retreated to the small garden behind the lodge. The rain had stopped, leaving everything washed clean and glistening in the afternoon light. He settled on a stone bench beneath an ancient oak and arranged the gems before him. I need your collective wisdom, he said quietly, touching each gem in turn. Tonight we'll test everything we've planned. You've progressed remarkably, Fleamont's voice was warm with pride. But recovering your parents' gems will require more than just magical skill. It will require courage and adaptability. And caution, Doria added. Dumbledore didn't become the most powerful wizard in Britain through carelessness. His protections will be subtle and layered. Harry nodded, watching a blackbird hop along the wet grass searching for worms. I've been thinking about the inheritance ritual you mentioned, great-grandmother. Is it truly necessary? More than necessary, essential, Doria replied firmly. The ritual of ascension would normally wait until your 11th birthday, but circumstances demand acceleration. Without it, you cannot fully bond with all 5 soul gems simultaneously. The ritual carries risk, Charles cautioned. Channeling ancestral magic before physical maturity taxes the body significantly. But if successful, it would strengthen my claim as head of House Potter, Harry reasoned. And make it harder for Dumbledore to force me back under his guardianship. Precisely, Doria agreed. The ministry respects ancient magical traditions, particularly those involving noble houses. A successfully completed ritual of ascension would grant you limited adult status in magical matters. Harry considered this carefully, weighing the risks against the increasing pressure from multiple fronts. Then we'll prepare for both. First retrieving my parents' gems, then performing the ritual. There's something else to consider, Fleamont said carefully. Something we've not discussed directly but must address before you confront Dumbledore. The prophecy, Harry guessed. Yes. Divination was never my specialty, but Doria studied it extensively. The fragments we've gathered suggest something troubling about your connection to Voldemort. Harry unconsciously touched his scar again. The night he gave me this. You think there's more to it than a failed killing curse? Lily's soul gem will contain the answer, Doria said with quiet certainty. She was researching protective magics extensively before your birth. If anyone understood what truly happened that night, it would be your mother. Determination settled over Harry like a cloak. Then we proceed as planned. Tonight, Hogwarts. Tomorrow, the ritual. And then we'll finally have answers about what Dumbledore has been hiding all these years. The ancient stones of Hogwarts loomed against the night sky, windows dark save for a few scattered lights marking the presence of summer residents, primarily staff preparing for the coming academic year. Harry, Remus, and Snape stood at the edge of the Forbidden Forest, studying the castle's silhouette. "Remember," Snape murmured, "I can only justify my presence through periodic ingredient harvesting in the forest. If we're discovered together, my position as your inside source is compromised." Harry nodded, adjusting the hooded cloak that concealed his features. "We'll separate once inside. You've shown us the passage, Remus, and I can manage from there." "The headmaster is attending a Wisengamot session until midnight," Snape confirmed. "Use that window wisely." They moved silently across the grounds, keeping to shadows, until they reached an inconspicuous gardening shed near the greenhouses. Snape tapped a complex pattern on a stone behind it, revealing a narrow tunnel entrance. "This connects to the dungeons," he explained. "Originally created to evacuate students during the Grindelwald conflicts, now largely forgotten. I'll ensure the corridor is clear when you emerge." With that, Snape swept away toward the main entrance, his black robes making him nearly invisible in the darkness. "Ready?" Remus asked, lighting his wand with a muted lumos. Harry took a deep breath and nodded. "As Doria recommended, let me try something first." Placing his palm against the ancient stonework beside the tunnel entrance, Harry whispered, "I, Harry James Potter, heir of Godric Gryffindor, request safe passage through these halls." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a warm sensation spread from the stone into his palm, and a soft red glow briefly outlined the castle's foundation lines, visible only to them. "It worked," Harry whispered, amazed. "The castle recognizes me." "Extraordinary," Remus breathed. Even James didn't know of this connection. They entered the tunnel, which widened enough to walk comfortably once beyond the entrance. The walls bore faint carvings, scenes of historical events at Hogwarts, including what appeared to be the founders themselves. "The castle has its own consciousness of sorts," Doria explained in Harry's mind. "Not sentience as we understand it, but awareness built over a millennium of absorbing ambient magic. It acknowledges its heirs." After several minutes of walking, they reached a dead end. Harry repeated his request for passage, and the wall dissolved to reveal a dungeon corridor, dimly lit and deserted. As promised, Snape waited nearby, standing with apparent casualness as though conducting a routine patrol. He gave them the barest nod before turning away. "Third floor, west corridor, tapestry of trolls learning ballet," he murmured just loudly enough for them to hear. "The room of hidden things. The mirror was moved there after your father's gem was placed inside." With that cryptic instruction, Snape disappeared around a corner, maintaining his plausible deniability. "Room of hidden things?" Harry questioned quietly as they moved toward the nearest staircase. "I've never heard of it," Remus admitted. "But Hogwarts contains many secrets. Some known only to the staff." They ascended carefully, freezing at every creak and distant sound. The castle felt different in summer, not empty, but dormant, like a sleeping giant. Portraits murmured sleepily as they passed, few paying them much attention in their somnolent state. The third-floor corridor was deserted, moonlight streaming through tall windows and casting long shadows across the stone floor. They located the tapestry Snape had mentioned, an absurd depiction of mountain trolls in tutus attempting plies with predictably disastrous results. "Now what?" Remus whispered. "The room of requirement," Doria supplied immediately. "Of course. Brilliant hiding place. Walk past the blank wall opposite 3 times, focusing on finding the place where hidden things are stored." Harry relayed these instructions, and they began pacing before the seemingly solid wall. On their third pass, an ornate door materialized, weathered oak bound with iron, appearing so suddenly it seemed to have always been there. Remarkable, Remus breathed. In all my time here, I never discovered this. Harry pushed the door open to reveal a cathedral-sized room filled with thousands upon thousands of objects, towers of furniture, mountains of books, piles of what appeared to be contraband confiscated over centuries. Narrow pathways wound between the collections like rivers flowing through a junk landscape. How will we ever find the mirror in this? Harry despaired, staring at the overwhelming chaos. Use your connection to your father's magic, Fleamont advised. Soul gems call to one another, especially those of direct bloodline. Harry removed his grandfather's gem from its pouch, holding it in his palm and focusing on his desire to find James Potter's essence. The amber gem warmed immediately, then began to pulse with light that waxed and waned like a beacon. This way, Harry said, following the strengthening pulses down a winding path deeper into the room. They passed bizarre items, cages containing fossilized creatures, mannequins wearing ancient robes, cabinets that rattled ominously as they walked by. After several minutes of navigation, they reached a cleared space where a magnificent mirror stood, its frame golden and ornately carved with the inscription, Eris stra eru oit ube kafru oit unwosi. I show not your face but your heart's desire, Remus translated. The Mirror of Eris. A powerful and dangerous artifact. Harry approached slowly, remembering Charles's warnings about magical mirrors. As he stood before it, the reflective surface rippled like disturbed water before revealing not his own image, but a gathering of people, his family. His parents stood closest, smiling proudly, their hands on the shoulders of his reflection. Behind them, grandparents and great-grandparents stretched back in generations of Potters. I see them, Harry whispered, emotion thickening his voice. All of them. Remus placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. The mirror shows your deepest desire, Harry. Not reality. Many have wasted away before it, lost in impossible visions. With effort, Harry tore his gaze from the beautiful scene. My father's gem is inside somehow. But how do we extract it? Look more closely at your father's reflection, Charles guided. What is he holding? Harry focused on James Potter's image. In his hand was a ruby gem, glowing with internal fire, clearly another soul gem, though Harry couldn't see it outside the mirror. He's holding it, but it's not physically here, Harry reported. Remus circled the mirror thoughtfully. A classic conundrum. To obtain something from the Mirror of Eris, you must desire it for reasons other than possessing it. Your father created his soul gem to guide you, not to be possessed or used for power, Fleamont observed. You must want it specifically for its intended purpose, connection, not advantage. Harry pondered this, then stepped forward again. This time, instead of focusing on seeing his family, he concentrated on his need to know his father, to learn from him, to understand the man who had given his life in protection. His desire wasn't to possess the gem, but to forge the connection it was created to provide. The mirror's surface rippled again. This time, his reflection smiled and removed the ruby gem from James's hand. The reflection placed it in its own pocket, and Harry felt a sudden weight drop into his actual pocket. He reached in and withdrew a gleaming ruby soul gem, warm and pulsing with familiar magic. It worked, he exclaimed softly. Remus looked both relieved and astonished. Dumbledore's protections are elegant. Only someone seeking connection rather than power could retrieve it. Harry clutched the gem tightly, resisting the urge to bond with it immediately. We need to keep moving. My mother's gem is likely in the headmaster's office or quarters. That presents a greater challenge, Remus cautioned. His office is protected by gargoyles that admit only those who know the current password. There's another way, Doria interjected. A passage known only to the heads of house. It connects the headmaster's private study to the Chamber of Secrets. The Chamber of Secrets? Harry repeated aloud. I thought that was just a legend. Most do, Remus agreed. What do you know of it, Doria? Harry relayed her response, "It's real, created by Salazar Slytherin. But the entrance Dumbledore discovered isn't the original one. He found a secondary access point during the investigations of Myrtle Warren's death in the 1940s. And you think my mother's gem is hidden there?" Harry asked. "Almost certainly," Doria confirmed. "When examining Hogwarts wards years ago, I discovered Dumbledore had created a secure magical vault within the chamber, away from prying eyes and beyond the reach of even the school governors." "How do we find this entrance?" Remus asked practically. "Through the original entrance first, the second-floor girls' bathroom. From there, you can access the main chamber, and then locate Dumbledore's hidden study." Harry checked the time, barely 10 o'clock. "We still have 2 hours before Dumbledore returns. Let's move." They navigated carefully back through the room of hidden things and down to the second floor. The castle remained quiet, their passage unnoticed save for a brief moment of tension when they had to hide from the caretaker Filch making his rounds with his dust-colored cat. The bathroom was abandoned and decrepit, clearly unused for decades. Water pooled on the cracked tile floor, and several taps were permanently dripping. "This is where Myrtle died," Remus explained quietly. "She still haunts the place as a ghost, though she seems to be elsewhere tonight." "Fortunate," Harry murmured, examining the sinks at the center of the room. "Now, how do we open the entrance?" "The sink with the snake carving," Doria instructed. "It requires Parseltongue to open, the language of serpents." Harry frowned. "But I'm not a Parselmouth." "You're seeking Lily's gem," Charles reminded him. "Use her connection to guide you, just as you used James's." Following this advice, Harry removed the ruby soul gem from his pocket and held it alongside Fleamont's. Focusing on his need to find Lily's gem, he approached the sink and examined it closely. Sure enough, a tiny snake was etched into one of the copper taps. "I need to speak Parseltongue," Harry said, frustration evident in his voice. "But how?" "Blood magic," Doria suggested. "Place a drop of blood on the carving. Your heritage as heir of Gryffindor may override the Slytherin protection." Harry hesitated, then nodded. Using a small pocket knife, he pricked his finger and allowed a single drop of blood to fall onto the snake carving. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the carving began to glow with an eerie green light, and the entire sink structure began to move, revealing a large pipe descending into darkness. "That's not what I expected," Harry admitted. "Blood has power beyond most magic," Remus observed grimly. "Especially yours, given your family's connections to the founders." They peered down into the blackness. The pipe was wide enough for a person to slide through, but it disappeared into impenetrable darkness. "I'll go first," Remus decided. "If it's clear, I'll send up green sparks. If there's danger, red." Before Harry could object, Remus had lowered himself into the pipe and disappeared with a soft whoosh. Tense minutes passed before a shower of green sparks rose from the depths. Harry took a deep breath and followed, plunging into the slick pipe that twisted and turned deep beneath the castle. The descent seemed to go on forever before he finally shot out the end, landing on a damp stone floor covered with small animal bones. "Charming place," he commented, brushing himself off as Remus helped him up. Salazar Slytherin wasn't known for hospitality, Remus agreed, illuminating their surroundings with his wand. They stood in a stone tunnel stretching ahead into darkness. The walls were slick with moisture, and the air carried a musty, ancient smell. Harry suppressed a shiver as they began walking, the crunch of tiny bones beneath their feet the only sound besides their breathing. After several minutes, they reached a solid wall carved with entwined serpents, their eyes set with glittering emeralds that seemed to watch their approach. "Another Parseltongue door," Remus observed. Harry tried the blood approach again, but this time there was no response. The door remained solidly closed. "The chamber itself requires true Parseltongue," Doria confirmed. "But we don't need to enter the main chamber. Look for Dumbledore's modification, likely a less obvious entrance nearby." Following her guidance, They examined the walls around the serpent door until Harry noticed a small Hogwarts crest carved almost imperceptibly into one stone. Unlike the rest of the carvings, which were ancient and weathered, this one seemed newer, the edges still relatively sharp. "Here," he called to Remus. "This might be it." Harry pressed his palm against the crest and whispered, "In wisdom and courage, grant me passage." The stone dissolved, revealing a narrow passage that sloped upward. Dumbledore's escape route, Remus realized. Created during his investigation of the chamber. They followed the passage, which gradually became less rough-hewn and more finished, eventually leading to what appeared to be a dead end. A phoenix was carved into this barrier, its wings spread protectively across the surface. Dumbledore's personal seal, Fleamont noted. This likely connects directly to his private study. How do we get through without alerting him? Harry worried. Remus examined the carving closely. It's keyed to magical signature, not password. More sophisticated than the gargoyles guarding the main office entrance. Harry considered this problem. If it's keyed to Dumbledore's magic specifically, then we need Dumbledore's magic, Doria concluded. Or something carrying his magical signature. Harry's eyes widened with sudden inspiration. The tracking charm. Remus looked confused. What tracking charm? The one Dumbledore placed on me as a baby, Harry explained, excitement building. The goblins said they couldn't remove it completely because it was anchored too deeply, they could only suppress it. It still carries his magical signature. Understanding dawned on Remus's face. And if you temporarily release the suppression, the door might recognize it as Dumbledore's magic and grant access, Harry finished. A considerable risk, Charles warned. Releasing the suppression, even briefly, could alert Dumbledore to your location. We don't have a choice, Harry decided. And he's at the Ministry until midnight. We should have time. With Remus's help, Harry performed the countercharm to temporarily lift the goblin suppression. Immediately, he felt a subtle change, a faint magical pressure that hadn't been there before. Without hesitation, he pressed his palm to the phoenix carving. For one heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the stone warmed beneath his hand, and the phoenix seemed to come alive, its wings opening as the barrier dissolved. They stepped through into a circular room lined with bookshelves. Unlike the headmaster's main office with its whirring silver instruments and portraits of former headmasters, this space was austere and intensely private. A single desk dominated the center, covered with parchments and open books. Along one wall stood a glass cabinet containing various artifacts, each resting on its own velvet cushion. Quickly, Remus urged. Find the gem and let's go. We've been lucky so far, but that won't last. Harry approached the cabinet, drawn by instinct toward a shimmering object at its center. There, nestled on deep purple velvet, lay an opal soul gem swirling with green and white fire, unmistakably his mother's. There it is, he breathed, reaching for the cabinet door. Wait, Remus cautioned, casting detection spells. It's heavily warded. These are blood wards, keyed to Dumbledore specifically. He used Lily's own protection principles against theft, Doria observed with grudging admiration. Elegant, if infuriating. Harry studied the wards, which appeared to his magically sensitive sight as a web of golden light surrounding the cabinet. Could my blood work? If they're based on my mother's research? Possibly, Remus acknowledged. But triggering a blood ward incorrectly could have severe consequences. Try a combination approach, Charles suggested. Your blood, offered willingly, combined with the temporary link to Dumbledore's magical signature. Following this guidance, Harry pricked his finger again and let a drop of blood fall onto the cabinet's lock while maintaining the connection to Dumbledore's tracking charm. The golden web of wards shimmered, then gradually faded, the cabinet door swinging open with a soft click. With trembling fingers, Harry reached for the opal gem, feeling its magic resonate with his own the moment he touched it. Unlike the other gems, this one felt intrinsically familiar, as though it had always been meant for him. I've got it, he whispered, cradling the gem reverently. "Let's," a loud, clear chime suddenly echoed through the room, cutting him off mid-sentence. Remus paled dramatically. "The Hogwarts warning system," he explained urgently. "It signals the headmaster when someone breaches his private quarters. Dumbledore will know immediately." "But he's at the Ministry," Harry protested. "And can return via flu in seconds," Remus countered, already moving toward the exit. "We need to leave. Now." They rushed back through the Phoenix Passage, Harry clutching both his parents' soul gems tightly. The suppression on Dumbledore's tracking charm had automatically re-engaged the moment they'd accessed the cabinet, but the damage was done, their presence had been detected. As they hurried through the stone tunnels back toward the pipe entrance, a distant rumble shook the foundations around them. "What was that?" Harry gasped, struggling to keep up with Remus's longer strides. "The castle responding to Dumbledore's command," Remus explained grimly. "He's likely sealing exits." They reached the base of the entrance pipe, but the distant rumbling was growing louder. Harry looked up at the seemingly impossible vertical climb. "How do we get back up?" Remus was already casting an unfamiliar charm. Ascendio Pathway. The spell created a spiraling staircase of translucent magic within the pipe, offering a means to climb back to the bathroom. "Quickly," Remus urged. "The spell won't last long." They scrambled up the magical staircase, which began to dissolve behind them as they climbed. Harry could hear voices above, alarmed, authoritative voices that could only belong to staff members responding to the breach. "We're going to be caught," he realized with growing dread. "Not if I can help it," Remus replied, determination hardening his features. He reached inside his robes and withdrew a small object, a simple wooden token carved with a paw print. "Emergency port key. Severus provided it in case of discovery. It will take us to the edge of the Forbidden Forest." "But Hogwarts has anti-port key wards," Harry objected. "This one's keyed to staff access protocols." "Hold tight." They reached the top of the pipe just as the bathroom door burst open, revealing Professors McGonagall and Flitwick with wands drawn. Harry caught just a glimpse of their shocked expressions before Remus activated the port key, and they were yanked away in a disorienting swirl of magic. They landed roughly at the forest's edge, both breathing heavily from exertion and adrenaline. In the distance, lights were coming on throughout the castle as the alarm spread. "They saw us," Harry gasped. "They saw our faces." "McGonagall certainly did," Remus agreed grimly. "We need to leave Hogwarts grounds immediately before they organize a proper search." They moved swiftly through the darkness toward their predetermined emergency extraction point beyond the castle's anti-apparition wards. Harry clutched the newly acquired soul gems, feeling their warm pulses against his palm, a counterpoint to his racing heartbeat. "Did you reimpose the suppression charm?" Remus asked as they ran. "It engaged automatically," Harry confirmed. "But it doesn't matter now. They know I'm involved. Then our timeline accelerates. The inheritance ritual must happen immediately, before Dumbledore can rally the Ministry against you." As they finally crossed the boundary and Remus prepared to apparate them to safety, Harry caught a glimpse of a tall figure with flowing silver beard and half-moon spectacles standing on the castle steps, looking directly toward them across the distance. Though too far to see clearly, Harry felt Dumbledore's gaze like a physical weight. Their eyes met for just a moment before Remus's apparition whisked them away. The Potter hunting lodge was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Snape was already there, having left Hogwarts at the first alarm to avoid suspicion. He looked even more severe than usual, his face taut with tension. "McGonagall recognized both of you," he reported without preamble. "Dumbledore has called an emergency order meeting. They'll be searching every known connection to the Potters or Lupin by morning. Then we have only hours," Harry concluded, placing all 5 soul gems on the table, amber, sapphire, emerald, ruby, and opal forming a perfect pentagram. "The ritual of ascension must happen tonight." "That ritual typically requires months of preparation," Snape objected. Attempting it hastily, with a child your age. We don't have a choice, Harry insisted. Once I'm recognized as head of House Potter by magic itself, Dumbledore's legal guardianship becomes contestable. It's our only leverage. Remus and Snape exchanged concerned glances. The ritual is dangerous under ideal circumstances, Remus said carefully. Performed in haste, with pursuit imminent. It can be done safely, Doria's confident voice filled Harry's mind. I've overseen dozens of ascension rituals in my time. With all 5 soul gems present, the ancestral magic will stabilize the process. My ancestors will guide me, Harry assured them. They've prepared me for this. Despite clear reservations, Remus began clearing the main room while Snape retrieved ritual components from his portable potions kit. Harry sat cross-legged on the floor, finally allowing himself a moment to connect with his parents' soul gems. He placed his father's ruby gem against his forehead first. The connection was immediate and overwhelming, a rush of love, pride, and fierce protectiveness flooding through him. Unlike his grandparents' more measured presences, James Potter's essence was vibrant and youthful. Harry. My son. James's voice was exactly as Harry had imagined, warm, slightly mischievous, filled with emotion. Look at you, so brave, so determined. Just like your mother. Tears streamed freely down Harry's face as he absorbed this first direct connection to his father. Images flashed through his mind, James as a student, playing Quidditch, proposing to Lily by the lake, holding baby Harry with wonder and adoration. I'm so sorry we couldn't be there for you, James continued, his mental voice thick with regret. But you've done amazingly well. Finding the gems, escaping Dumbledore's controls, I couldn't be prouder. Dad, Harry whispered aloud, the word feeling strange and wonderful on his lips. I've wanted to know you for so long. And now you do, son. I'm with you, we both are. Speaking of which. Harry understood the gentle nudge and lowered the ruby gem, replacing it with his mother's opal. The connection formed differently, cool, crystalline clarity washing through his mind like spring water. My beautiful boy, Lily Potter's voice was soft yet strong, exactly as he'd dreamed it would be. My brave, clever Harry. Fresh tears fell as Harry experienced his mother's presence for the first time in memory. Her essence carried the same fierce love as James's, but tempered with analytical brilliance and deep compassion. I've so much to tell you, Lily continued, about the protections I created, about what really happened that night, about what Dumbledore may not understand even now. The prophecy? Harry asked. Yes, and more. The blood protection is linked to a much deeper magic than Dumbledore realized. Images formed in Harry's mind, Lily surrounded by ancient tomes, performing complex rituals during her pregnancy, weaving protections into Harry's very being. I didn't just die for you, Harry. I channeled my life essence into you through ancient magic. Magic that connects to something Voldemort did to himself years before. What did he do? Harry asked, sensing they were approaching something vital. He fractured his soul deliberately, multiple times. Created anchors called horcruxes to prevent true death. Lily's mental voice was grim. And the night he attacked us, when my sacrifice rebounded his killing curse, something unexpected happened. A terrible suspicion formed in Harry's mind. My scar. Yes. A fragment of his shattered soul attached itself to you. That's why Dumbledore took our gems, to research how to remove it without harming you. The revelation hit Harry like physical blow. He was carrying a piece of Voldemort's soul inside him, had been since that terrible night. The implications were staggering. Does that mean, am I? You are Harry Potter, Lily's voice was fierce and certain. That fragment is not part of you, it's a parasite. And we will find a way to remove it safely, I promise. Before Harry could process this fully, Remus called from across the room. Harry, the ritual circle is ready. With effort, Harry pulled himself back to the present moment, carefully setting his mother's gem alongside the others. He would have time later to fully explore their knowledge and guidance. For now, the immediate crisis demanded attention. The main room had been transformed. Furniture pushed aside, a perfect circle drawn on the wooden floor in white chalk, with 5 smaller circles positioned at equidistant points around the perimeter. Candles burned at strategic positions, their flames perfectly still despite the movement around them. The ancestral positions are marked, Remus explained, indicating the 5 smaller circles. Each soul gem must be placed in its proper alignment. Under Doria's guidance, Harry positioned the gems, Fleamont to the east, wisdom, Charles to the south, strength, Doria to the west, protection, James to the north, courage, and Lily directly north by northeast, love. As each gem settled into position, it began to glow with increased intensity, the light pulsing in perfect synchronization. The ritual ingredients, Snape said, handing Harry a small silver cup containing a potion that shimmered with opalescent light. Blood Inheritance Elixir. Modified for your specific lineage. Harry accepted it with a nod of thanks. Despite their complicated history, Snape had proven a valuable ally, especially in matters requiring potions expertise. Once you drink it and enter the circle, Remus explained, we cannot interfere. The ritual must proceed to completion naturally, or... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The consequences of a failed ascension ritual were severe, potentially fatal. I understand, Harry said, his young voice steady despite the enormity of what he was attempting. We will guide you through every step, his ancestors promised in unified voice. Harry took a deep breath, drank the elixir in one swallow, and stepped into the center of the circle. Immediately, the chalk lines began to glow with blue-white fire that rose to form a cylindrical barrier separating him from Remus and Snape. The soul gems pulsed more intensely, their individual colors beginning to bleed into one another, forming a rainbow of magical energy. Following his ancestors' guidance, Harry knelt in the center of the circle and began the invocation, his voice strengthened by the potion and the surrounding magic. I, Harry James Potter, call upon the ancient magic of House Potter. By blood, by spirit, by rightful inheritance, I seek ascension as head of house. The magical fire intensified, swirling around him like a cyclone. Harry felt his body growing lighter, as though gravity had loosened its hold. The soul gems rose from their positions, hovering at eye level around him. Through Fleamont, I claim the wisdom of my line. The amber gem flared brilliantly, and Harry felt knowledge flowing into him, family history, magical theory, potion mastery, more than he could fully process, yet somehow integrating with his consciousness. Through Charles, I claim the strength of my line. The sapphire gem pulsed and power surged through Harry's small frame, not just magical strength, but fortitude of character, determination, the unbreakable Potter will that had sustained generations. Through Doria, I claim the protection of my line. The emerald gem shimmered, enveloping Harry in layers of defensive magic, wards, shields, counter curses, and the ancient black family knowledge of combating dark arts. Through James, I claim the courage of my line. The ruby gem blazed like a miniature sun, filling Harry with his father's boundless bravery, his willingness to stand against any odds, his fierce loyalty to those he loved. Through Lily, I claim the love of my line. The opal gem glowed with pure white light, and Harry felt his mother's sacrifice anew, not just as historical fact, but as living magic that flowed in his veins, the ultimate protection born of unconditional love. By right of blood and magic, I claim my heritage. As it was, as it is, as it shall be. Potter by name, Potter by nature, Potter by legacy eternal. The 5 gems began to orbit around Harry, moving faster and faster until they formed a continuous ring of light. The magical fire rose to the ceiling, the entire lodge trembling with the power being channeled. Outside, a sudden storm whipped into existence, lightning illuminating the windows in staccato flashes. Harry felt his body straining under the influx of ancestral magic, too much power for his young frame to contain. Pain lanced through him as the magic sought equilibrium, restructuring itself to accommodate his physical limitations. Hold fast, his ancestors urged in unified voice. The pain is temporary. The bond is forever. Gritting his teeth, Harry remained centered in the maelstrom, accepting the pain as necessary transition. Around him, reality seemed to warp and bend as the ritual approached its climax. Through the swirling magic, he caught glimpses of Remus and Snape watching with expressions of awe and concern. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. The fire vanished. The gems froze in mid-orbit. Even the storm outside fell instantly silent. Harry hung suspended in perfect stillness at the center of the circle. A voice that was 5 voices spoke through him: the ascension is accepted. The heir becomes the head. The circle is complete. With that pronouncement, the soul gems plunged simultaneously into Harry's chest, passing through clothing and skin without resistance, merging with his magical core in a final blinding flash of light that knocked Remus and Snape backward. When the light faded, Harry stood transformed. Though physically unchanged, an unmistakable aura of power and authority surrounded him. On his right hand gleamed a golden signet ring bearing the Potter crest, a ring that had not existed moments before, manifested directly from family magic. He swayed slightly, then steadied himself, looking at his hands with wonder. It worked, he whispered, his voice somehow both a child's and not. I can feel them all, not just their knowledge, but their presence. United. Remus approached cautiously, helping Harry from the circle. How do you feel? Different, Harry admitted. Stronger in some ways, but... He winced suddenly, pressing a hand to his forehead. The scar hurts. It's reacting to the ritual. Snape moved forward with uncharacteristic urgency. The soul fragment your mother identified. It's fighting the ascension magic. Soul fragment? Remus questioned sharply. Voldemort's horcrux, Harry explained through gritted teeth, the pain intensifying. Part of him is inside me. Has been since that night. Remus paled dramatically. That's impossible. A living horcrux. Not intentional, Snape corrected, examining Harry's scar with growing concern. An accident caused by his already fragmented soul and Lily's sacrifice. That's what Dumbledore was researching, Harry realized, fighting through the pain. He wasn't just keeping secrets from me, he was trying to find a way to remove it without killing me. And now the ritual has agitated it, Snape observed grimly. The ancestral magic recognizes it as foreign and is attempting to expel it. Harry could feel exactly that, his newly strengthened family magic rallying against the dark parasite in his scar. The pain was becoming unbearable, darkness edging his vision. What can we do? Remus demanded, supporting Harry as he stumbled. Nothing, Snape replied, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. This is a battle only Potter can fight, with his ancestors' help. Harry closed his eyes, turning inward to where 5 distinct presences now resided permanently within his magical core. Unlike their limited connections through the external gems, this integration was complete, a true merging of knowledge, personality, and magical essence. The fragment must be contained until it can be properly removed, Lily's voice guided. I've studied this extensively since creating my soul gem. We'll form a barrier around it, James added. Family magic combined. Under their guidance, Harry directed his strengthened magic toward the foreign presence he could now clearly sense lurking in his scar. Rather than attacking it directly, he began weaving layered containment spells, drawing on Fleamont's precision, Charles's power, Doria's protective expertise, James's determination, and Lily's sacrificial love. Gradually, the excruciating pain subsided as the horcrux fragment was sealed behind magical barriers within his mind. It wasn't removed, that would require a different ritual entirely, but it was neutralized, prevented from influencing him or drawing power from his magic. When Harry opened his eyes, both Remus and Snape were watching him with matching expressions of concern. It's contained, he informed them, his voice steadier. Not gone, but no longer active. Extraordinary, Snape murmured. The combined knowledge of 5 generations of Potters, accessible to a 6-year-old boy. 7, Harry corrected with a small smile. I'm 7 now, remember? And legally recognized as head of House Potter by ancestral magic. Before either adult could respond, a silvery phoenix Patronus materialized in the center of the room. It opened its beak and spoke with Dumbledore's calm yet urgent voice, "Harry, I know you can hear me. What you've done is dangerous beyond your understanding. The soul gems contain knowledge you are not prepared for, and the ascension ritual at your age risks permanent damage. Please, allow me to help you. Meet me in the Chamber of Secrets, neutral ground, and I will explain everything. Come alone if you wish, but come quickly. There are others searching for you with far darker intentions than mine." The Patronus dissolved, leaving them in stunned silence. "A trap?" Remus suggested warily. "Perhaps," Snape allowed. "But the warning about others searching is genuine. The Dark Lord's former followers are mobilizing, more actively than I initially realized." Harry considered this, consulting internally with his ancestors. Their unified assessment surprised him. He's being sincere, Harry concluded. At least in his desire to explain. And he's right about one thing, neutral ground is our best option for any meeting. You can't seriously be considering going back to Hogwarts, Remus objected. Not after we were just discovered there. Not immediately, Harry clarified. First, we secure our political position. Political position? Snape raised an eyebrow. Harry nodded, a plan forming with the combined strategic thinking of his ancestors. The Ministry respects 2 things above all else, ancient magic and public opinion. We now have the first. It's time to arrange the second. The offices of the Daily Prophet were normally closed at 3 in the morning, but exceptions could always be made for exceptional circumstances. The night editor's eyes had nearly bulged from his head when Harry Potter, the missing boy who lived, walked into the building accompanied by a renowned potions master and a solicitor from the prestigious magical law firm of Artemis, Blackwood, and Rawlins. Now, Harry sat calmly in a private interview room, his Potter signet ring clearly visible as he sipped the tea provided. Across from him, Rita Skeeter, the Prophet's most aggressive investigative reporter, was practically vibrating with excitement, her acid green quill poised over parchment. "Let me be absolutely clear on the arrangement," the solicitor, Mr. Artemis, stated firmly. "This is an exclusive interview granted under magical contract. All quotes must be published verbatim, without embellishment. Speculation must be clearly labeled as such. In exchange, Mr. Potter is providing the story of the decade." Naturally, Skeeter agreed, eyes never leaving Harry. "The public has been desperate for information since Dumbledore announced your disappearance. That's why I've come forward," Harry said with practiced composure. "To correct misconceptions and share the truth directly." The interview that followed was a masterclass in controlled information release. Harry shared his discovery of his heritage, his recovery of family artifacts inappropriately removed from Potter vaults, and his successful completion of the ritual of ascension. "So you're claiming legal status as head of House Potter?" Skeeter clarified, quill scratching frantically. "Not claiming, I am head of House Potter," Harry corrected, holding up his ring. "Recognized by ancestral magic and Gringotts banking authorities. While I remain young in years, magic itself has acknowledged my position." "And Albus Dumbledore's role in all this?" Skeeter pressed, scenting scandal. Harry chose his words carefully. "Professor Dumbledore made decisions he believed were in my best interest following my parents' murder. However, he did so without consulting the magical portraits or soul gems of my ancestors, which contain specific instructions for my upbringing. I bear the headmaster no ill will, but I cannot condone actions that separated me from my heritage." It was a diplomatic response that nonetheless placed Dumbledore clearly in the wrong, perfect for swaying public opinion without appearing vindictive. "What about your living arrangements? Surely a 7-year-old boy can't live independently, even as head of an ancient house." I will be residing primarily at Potter Properties under appropriate supervision, Harry replied smoothly. I've appointed a council of advisors including magical and legal guardians who will assist with day-to-day matters while preserving my authority in family decisions. The interview continued for another hour, with Harry providing carefully selected details about his magical education, his plans to eventually attend Hogwarts, when the time is right, and his hope that the wizarding world would respect his privacy while supporting his right to know his own heritage. By the time they left the Prophet offices, the first rays of dawn were breaking over London. The special edition would hit the streets within hours, fundamentally changing the narrative around Harry's disappearance. That should create sufficient public pressure to keep the Ministry from simply handing you back to Dumbledore, Mr. Artemis observed as they parted ways in a quiet alley. Harry nodded his thanks. And the filing with the Wizengamot? Submitted at midnight. Your statement of ascension, claim of magical emancipation in family matters, and petition for review of guardianship are now matters of public record. Dumbledore will be required to respond through proper legal channels rather than simply retrieving you by force. Excellent. Harry turned to Snape, who had remained silently observant throughout the proceedings. And now, Professor, I believe I have an appointment in the Chamber of Secrets. The Chamber of Secrets looked different in deliberate illumination than it had during their hasty exit hours earlier. Massive serpentine columns rose to support a ceiling lost in shadows. At the chamber's far end, an enormous stone face, presumably Salazar Slytherin, glared down with imperious disdain. Harry stood alone in the center of the vast space, waiting. Despite appearing solitary, he was anything but. 5 ancestral presences remained with him, integrated into his consciousness yet distinct, offering continuous guidance and support. Additionally, both Remus and Snape waited nearby in the antechamber, ready to intervene if necessary. A soft whooshing sound announced Dumbledore's arrival. The headmaster appeared from a side passage Harry hadn't noticed before, his midnight blue robes embroidered with silver stars that seemed to twinkle in the dim light. Despite the early hour, he appeared fully alert, though perhaps more careworn than his public appearances suggested. Harry, Dumbledore greeted softly, stopping several yards away. Thank you for coming. Headmaster, Harry acknowledged with a slight incline of his head. You wanted to explain. I'm listening. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment, his blue eyes taking in the Potter ring, the confident posture, the unmistakable aura of ancestral magic that now surrounded the boy. You've succeeded in the ritual of ascension, he observed. Remarkable achievement for one so young. And dangerous. Less dangerous than remaining ignorant of my heritage and purpose, Harry countered. Especially given what I now know about the fragment in my scar. A flash of surprise crossed Dumbledore's features before he could mask it. Lily's soul gem revealed that, did it? I should have anticipated as much. She was extraordinarily perceptive about soul magic near the end. Why didn't you tell me? Harry asked, the simple question carrying the weight of years of withheld truth. About my parents, about magic, about any of it? Dumbledore sighed heavily. Would you have understood? At 4. At 5? I intended to explain everything when you came to Hogwarts, when you were old enough to comprehend the burden you carry. That wasn't your decision to make, Harry said firmly. My parents left provisions, magical guardians, properties with powerful protections, soul gems to guide me. You overrode all of them. To protect you, Dumbledore insisted. Voldemort's followers were still at large, hunting for any connection to their fallen master. The blood protection through your mother's family offered security that even the Potter estates couldn't match. Protection that came at the cost of abuse and neglect, Harry countered. You never checked on me, did you? Never saw how the Dursleys treated their kind. A shadow of genuine regret passed over Dumbledore's face. I monitored the blood wards, not your day-to-day treatment. Perhaps that was a mistake. But your physical safety had to take precedence. And the soul gems? What justification can you offer for removing them from the Potter vault? That was indeed an overreach, Dumbledore admitted, surprising Harry with his candor. "When I discovered the horcrux in your scar, I needed information about soul magic that few sources could provide. The Potter grimoires and soul gems contained ancient knowledge about spiritual protection that I hoped would offer a solution." "You could have consulted them without removing them," Harry pointed out. "As my magical guardian, Gringotts would have granted you access. But not privacy," Dumbledore countered. "What I learned needed to remain absolutely confidential. If word had spread about your condition, that you harbored a fragment of Voldemort's soul, imagine the consequences. Some would have feared you, others sought to control or destroy you." Harry absorbed this, consulting internally with his ancestors. There was logic in Dumbledore's reasoning, though his methods remained questionable. "And did you find a solution?" Harry asked. "A way to remove the horcrux safely?" Dumbledore's expression grew grave. "Not yet. Though I've identified several promising avenues. The containment you've achieved through the ascension ritual buys us valuable time, but it is not a permanent solution." "Us?" Harry raised an eyebrow. "You still speak as though my fate remains in your hands." "Not in my hands, Harry," Dumbledore corrected gently. "But perhaps alongside them. Despite our disagreements, we share a common goal, your well-being and Voldemort's permanent defeat." "Which brings us to the prophecy," Harry said. "The real reason he targeted my family." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Yes. The prophecy. I had hoped to protect you from that burden a while longer, but circumstances have accelerated beyond my careful planning." He paused, then recited from memory, "The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches. Born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the seventh month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives." The words hung in the chamber like physical things, echoing slightly in the vast space. Harry felt their weight settle onto his shoulders, a destiny proclaimed before his birth, now inescapably his. That's why the soul fragment is significant, Harry realized. Mark him as his equal wasn't just about my scar. He literally transferred part of himself to me. "Precisely," Dumbledore confirmed, looking impressed despite himself. "Though inadvertently. The prophecy continues to unfold in ways even I didn't anticipate." "And the power he knows not?" Dumbledore's eyes softened. "That, I believe, is love. The protection your mother provided through her sacrifice. The same power that now flows through your ascended family magic." Harry considered this, finding it simultaneously simplistic and profound. "So our conflict is inevitable. The prophecy says one of us must kill the other." "Prophecies are complex," Dumbledore cautioned. "Their wording is precise yet subject to interpretation. Neither can live while the other survives need not necessarily mean death, perhaps simply that neither can be whole while the other exists in current form. You're suggesting the horcrux must be destroyed, but not necessarily me with it," Harry deduced. "Exactly. And finding that method has been my primary focus since that terrible night." Dumbledore took a tentative step forward. "Harry, despite our current disagreement, I have only ever sought to protect you and prepare you for the burden fate has placed upon you." "Through control and secrecy," Harry noted, though without the anger that might have colored such words hours earlier. His ancestors' perspectives had granted him a more nuanced understanding of Dumbledore's actions, misguided perhaps, but not malicious. "Through caution and careful planning," Dumbledore corrected. "The same caution I urge now. Your public declaration of independence may satisfy legal requirements, but it also exposes you to those who would do you harm." "You mean Voldemort's followers? And potentially worse threats?" Dumbledore's expression grew grave. "There are indications that some seek not to avenge their master, but to resurrect him, using you and the horcrux you contain." This was new information, not something Harry's ancestors or even Snape had mentioned. "What indications?" "Dark magic detections in Albania, where Voldemort's wraith is rumored to exist. Coordinated movements among former Death Eaters previously thought unconnected. And most concerning, the theft of certain artifacts associated with spiritual reconstitution from the Department of Mysteries. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. You believe they have a specific plan to bring him back? I believe they're gathering the necessary components, Dumbledore clarified. One of which may be you, or more precisely, the soul fragment within you. The implications were sobering. Harry had been so focused on escaping Dumbledore's control that he hadn't fully considered the wider dangers still hunting him. His ancestors' collective knowledge confirmed the plausibility of Dumbledore's warning. What do you propose? Harry asked, his tone more conciliatory. Cooperation, Dumbledore said simply. I acknowledge your status as head of House Potter. I will not challenge your limited emancipation or your right to reside at Potter Properties. In exchange, I ask for your trust in matters relating to Voldemort and the Horcruxes. That's a significant request given recent history, Harry observed. Indeed. But perhaps we might begin with smaller steps. Dumbledore suggested. Shared information. Regular consultation. I have resources beyond even your ancestors' considerable knowledge, and you have perspectives and abilities I lack. It was a reasonable proposal, more reasonable than Harry had expected. He consulted internally, weighing 5 generations of insight against the immediate threat. I'll consider it, he finally said. But any arrangement must respect my autonomy and include full disclosure of information relevant to my situation. Acceptable terms, Dumbledore agreed, looking relieved. I suggest, whatever suggestion he intended was interrupted by a tremendous explosion from somewhere above. The entire chamber shook, dust and stone fragments raining from the ceiling. What was that? Harry gasped, stumbling as the floor trembled beneath him. Dumbledore's expression transformed instantly from diplomatic to battle-ready. The castle's outer wards. They're under attack. Before either could react further, Snape burst into the chamber, his normally sallow face even paler than usual. Death Eaters, he reported tersely. Led by Bellatrix Lestrange. She's escaped Azkaban. Impossible, Dumbledore breathed. The prison's security was compromised by inside help, Snape cut in. They're targeting Potter specifically. Someone informed them of his presence here. Remus appeared behind Snape, wand already drawn. The castle's being evacuated. McGonagall is coordinating the remaining staff to defend the perimeter. Another explosion rocked the foundations, this one closer and more powerful than the first. Dust filled the air, momentarily obscuring visibility. We must get Harry to safety immediately, Dumbledore declared, all previous tension between them set aside in the face of imminent danger. The emergency port keys won't work during an attack, Snape pointed out. The castle lockdown protocols prevent it. Then we fight our way out, Harry said with a calm that surprised even himself. The combined courage of his ancestors flowed through him, steadying his nerves. Together. Dumbledore studied him for a brief moment, then nodded sharply. Stay between us. Use defensive magic only unless absolutely necessary. Your magical core is still developing, despite the ascension ritual. They moved swiftly toward the chamber exit, Dumbledore and Snape leading, Remus guarding the rear. As they reached the antechamber, a silvery cat Patronus, McGonagall's, found them. Albus, they've breached the main entrance, her voice reported urgently. At least 12 attackers, heavily armed. Bellatrix is demanding the Potter boy and something she calls the Master's Anchor. They're heading toward the dungeons. They know about the Horcrux, Dumbledore concluded grimly. And they believe it can be used to resurrect Voldemort. How? Harry questioned as they hurried through the tunnels. How could they know? Bellatrix was always the Dark Lord's most devoted follower, Snape explained. It's possible he shared contingency plans with her that even I wasn't privy to. They reached the base of the pipe leading back to the second-floor bathroom, but Dumbledore shook his head. Too obvious. They'll have that exit covered. He turned to a seemingly blank wall and traced a complex pattern with his wand. This way. A hidden passage appeared, leading upward at a steep angle. They climbed quickly, emerging eventually into a corridor Harry didn't recognize, somewhere on the ground floor, based on the architecture. The sounds of battle echoed from multiple directions, shouts, explosions, the distinctive crackle of combat spellfire. Hogwarts was under full attack, its summer-depleted staff struggling against what sounded like a well-coordinated assault. The boathouse, Dumbledore decided. We can exit through the lake passage and apparate from beyond the grounds. They moved cautiously through empty corridors, avoiding the main halls where combat seemed concentrated. Twice they had to backtrack when passages ahead showed signs of damage or ongoing fighting. Throughout it all, Harry remained calm, drawing on his ancestors' battle experiences and focusing on the immediate goal of escape. They had nearly reached the corridor leading to the boathouse when disaster struck. A wall to their left exploded inward, showering them with debris and temporarily blinding them with dust and smoke. Through the newly created hole stepped a wild-haired woman with heavy-lidded eyes and a smile of demented glee. "There you are." Bellatrix Lestrange cackled, her voice containing equal measures of madness and dangerous intelligence. "The boy with my master's soul." Dumbledore and Snape moved simultaneously, shield charms expanding to protect Harry as they positioned themselves between him and the notorious Death Eater. Remus pulled Harry backward, already searching for an alternate escape route. "Bellatrix," Dumbledore acknowledged coldly. "Your loyalty is misplaced. Voldemort is gone." "Liar," she shrieked. "He cannot die. And he shall return when I deliver the anchor." Her wild eyes fixed on Harry with disturbing intensity. "The boy comes with me." "That will not happen," Dumbledore stated with quiet authority, his magic beginning to manifest visibly around him, a shimmering aura of power that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Bellatrix laughed again, high and cruel. "You think I came alone, old man?" As if on cue, more figures appeared behind her, masked Death Eaters with wands raised. Among them, Harry recognized Antonin Dolohov from their encounter at the Ministry, his eyes narrowed in confused recognition as the memory charm fought against new information. "Take the boy," Bellatrix commanded. "Kill the others." What followed was chaos. Spellfire erupted from all directions as Dumbledore and Snape engaged multiple opponents simultaneously. The corridor became a battlefield of multicolored lights, explosions, and flying debris. Remus pushed Harry into an alcove, shielding him bodily while returning fire at Death Eaters trying to flank their position. "We need to move," Remus shouted over the din of combat. "They're trying to separate us from Dumbledore." Harry nodded, assessing their options with unnatural clarity. His ancestral guidance identified the pattern in the attackers' movements. They were indeed maneuvering to isolate him from his strongest protectors. A decision crystallized. Drawing on Doria's expertise in defensive magic, Harry cast a modified disillusionment charm over himself and Remus. "This way," he whispered, pulling Remus toward a tapestry he'd noticed concealing a small service passage. "Servants' corridor, it should lead toward the kitchens." They slipped away from the main battle, the sounds of combat fading slightly as they navigated the narrow passage. Behind them, they could hear Bellatrix's frustrated screams as she realized her primary target had escaped. "Dumbledore and Snape?" Harry asked as they hurried. "Can handle themselves," Remus assured him, though concern lined his face. "Dumbledore is still the most powerful wizard alive, and Snape is no slouch in combat." They emerged near the kitchens to find this area of the castle mercifully quiet. The attack seemed concentrated on the main floors, with this lower level temporarily overlooked. "The boathouse is compromised," Remus reasoned. "But there's another way out through the kitchens, the old delivery tunnel." Following this plan, they hurried toward the kitchen entrance, a painting of a bowl of fruit that Remus tickled in a specific pattern to gain access. Inside, house elves cowered in corners, wide-eyed with fear at the unprecedented attack on their domain. Refugee passage, Remus explained quickly to the senior elf who approached them. Emergency protocol. The elf nodded vigorously, ears flapping. Nipsey knows. This way, sirs, quickly. She led them to what appeared to be a large pantry at the back of the kitchens, then pressed a specific stone in the flooring. A section of the floor slid away, revealing a rough-hewn tunnel sloping downward. Leads to edge of forest, beyond anti-apparition wards, Nipsey explained. Created for elflings to escape during Grindelwald wars. Thank you, Harry said sincerely, preparing to descend. Before he could take a step, however, the kitchen entrance burst open. Bellatrix Lestrange stood framed in the doorway, her hair wilder than ever, blood streaming from a cut on her cheek. Her eyes blazed with triumphant madness as they landed on Harry. Found you, she crowed. The Dark Lord will reward Bella beyond all others. Remus shoved Harry behind him, wand raised. Run, Harry. Get to the tunnel. But Harry couldn't just abandon Remus to face this clearly dangerous witch alone. Instead, he drew his own wand, the 5 generations of Potter magic surging within him. Bellatrix laughed at the sight of a child preparing to duel her. How adorable. The little baby wants to play. Her voice shifted abruptly to a vicious snarl. Crucio. The unforgivable curse shot toward them, but Remus deflected it with a hastily conjured shield. The kitchen erupted into battle once more as Remus and Bellatrix exchanged increasingly lethal spells, house elves scattering for cover. Harry wasn't idle. Drawing on Charles's combat experience, he carefully timed his own spells to support Remus, not direct attacks, but strategic hexes aimed at Bellatrix's footing, peripheral vision, and surrounding environment. The wolf fights well, Bellatrix acknowledged with mad glee, dancing between spells with unnatural agility. But Bella fights better. Avada Kedavra. The killing curse missed Remus by inches, shattering a shelf behind him. The momentary distraction was enough for Bellatrix to press her advantage, unleashing a barrage that drove Remus back step by step. Harry knew they were losing ground. Remus was skilled, but Bellatrix fought with the abandoned ferocity of the truly insane. Desperate measures were needed. Drawing on Lily's specialized knowledge, Harry pointed his wand not at Bellatrix, but at the stone floor beneath her feet. Anima disruptum, he shouted, channeling more power than he'd ever attempted. The spell, one of Lily's own creations, wasn't directly harmful. Instead, it created a localized disruption in magical flow, temporarily severing a witch or wizard from their magical core. In an adult, it would cause momentary disorientation. In a child casting it, it should have been barely noticeable. But Harry wasn't casting with just his own magic. He was channeling 5 generations of Potter power, focused through Lily's precise knowledge. The spell hit Bellatrix with such force that she was physically thrown backward, her wand flying from suddenly nerveless fingers as she screamed in genuine fear. "What did you do?" she shrieked, scrambling to recover her wand with panic in her eyes. For the first time, the madness was replaced by something else, primal terror as she briefly felt her connection to magic severed. Remus, recognizing the opening, cast in rapid succession, Expelliarmus. Incarcerus. Stupefy. Bellatrix, still reeling from Harry's spell, couldn't dodge all 3. The stunner hit her squarely in the chest, dropping her unconscious to the kitchen floor. Harry, Remus gasped, turning to him with equal parts awe and concern. That spell, my mother's creation, Harry explained, suddenly feeling the magical drain hit him. He swayed slightly on his feet. For emergency use only. Before Remus could respond, more voices sounded from the corridor outside, reinforcements coming to Bellatrix's aid. There was no more time for discussion. The tunnel, now. Remus ordered, helping the exhausted Harry toward the opening. They descended quickly, Nipsey sealing the entrance behind them. The tunnel was low and narrow, clearly designed for house elves rather than humans. Remus had to crouch significantly, while Harry could just barely stand upright. They moved as quickly as possible, guided by Remus's wand light. After what seemed like ages but was probably only minutes, they emerged from a hollow tree stump at the edge of the forbidden forest. The sounds of battle still echoed from the castle, now some distance away. Flickering lights and occasional explosions suggested the fight continued unabated. "We need to get beyond the anti-apparition boundary," Remus said, supporting Harry, who was still feeling the effects of magical exhaustion. "Can you make it another 100 yards?" Harry nodded determinedly, pushing through his fatigue. They made their way along the forest edge, staying within the tree-line for cover while moving steadily away from the castle. Finally, Remus tested the wards with a small apparition jump of just a few feet. "We're clear," he confirmed with relief. "Hold tight, Harry. I'm taking us to the secondary safe house." As Remus prepared to apparate, Harry glanced back toward Hogwarts one last time. In the pre-dawn light, he could see figures on the battlements, Dumbledore unmistakable among them, his silver beard and brilliant magic visible even at this distance. The headmaster seemed to be driving back the remaining attackers, his power magnificent to behold even from afar. "He's winning," Harry observed with relief. "Of course he is," Remus said with grim satisfaction. "But the fact that Bellatrix and her followers dared attack Hogwarts at all is deeply troubling. Something bigger is happening." "Voldemort," Harry said, unconsciously touching his scar. "They're really trying to bring him back." Remus nodded solemnly. "And they want you to do it. Which means nowhere is truly safe anymore." With that sobering thought, he tightened his grip on Harry and turned on the spot. As they disappeared with a crack, Harry's last glimpse was of Hogwarts standing strong against the dawn sky, battle-scarred but undefeated. Just like himself. Chapter 4, The Soul's Redemption. The Ministry's press atrium buzzed with anticipation. 200 journalists, officials, and spectators packed the chamber, their collective murmurs echoing off marble walls. On the raised platform, a long table accommodated 9 stern-faced members of the Wizarding Family Affairs Committee, their plum robes signifying judicial authority. At precisely 10 o'clock, the side doors opened. A hush fell as Harry Potter entered, flanked by his solicitor, Mr. Artemis, and Remus Lupin. Though only 7 years old, Harry carried himself with remarkable composure, the Potter signet ring gleaming on his right hand as he took his seat at the testimony table. 3 days had passed since the attack on Hogwarts. 3 days of front-page headlines screaming about Death Eater assaults, Bellatrix Lestrange's escape from Azkaban, and Harry Potter's dramatic reappearance in Wizarding Society. The Daily Prophet had published Harry's exclusive interview as promised, igniting fierce public debate about Dumbledore's guardianship decisions and the Ministry's handling of the boy who lived. Now, the emergency session of the Family Affairs Committee would determine Harry's legal status once and for all. "This hearing is called to order," announced Madame Augusta Longbottom, the committee's formidable chair-witch. "We convene to address the petition of Harry James Potter for recognition of his ascension to head of House Potter and limited magical emancipation." From his seat across the chamber, Albus Dumbledore watched with careful neutrality, his hands folded calmly in his lap. Despite the drama of recent days, he appeared unruffled in midnight blue robes adorned with silver stars. "Mr. Potter," Madame Longbottom continued, "the committee has reviewed your petition, the Gringotts certification of your ritual ascension, and the statements from both your solicitor and Professor Dumbledore. Do you wish to make any additional statement before we begin our questions?" Harry rose, his voice clear and steady despite his youth. "Thank you, Madam Chair-Witch. I wish only to emphasize that I seek not to escape proper guardianship, but to ensure that guardianship respects the magical traditions and protections established by my family. The Potter lineage contains powerful protective magic that can shield me more effectively than arrangements made without consideration of this ancestral wisdom." Several committee members nodded appreciatively at this measured response. Augusta Longbottom's stern expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Well stated," she acknowledged. "Professor Dumbledore, as Mr. Potter's current magical guardian, you've submitted a qualified statement neither supporting nor opposing his petition. Would you care to clarify your position?" All eyes turned to Dumbledore as he rose gracefully. Certainly, Madam Longbottom. Recent events have demonstrated that young Harry possesses both the magical capability and ancestral support to manage certain aspects of his inheritance. I have concerns about his physical safety, particularly in light of the Hogwarts attack, but I acknowledge that the Potter family protections offer considerable advantages. So you no longer oppose his petition, pressed Tiberius Ogden, an elderly wizard at the far end of the committee table. I propose a compromise, Dumbledore replied. Recognition of Harry's status as head of House Potter for magical and inheritance purposes, with a guardianship council to oversee his daily welfare until he reaches traditional maturity. Whispers swept through the audience. This was unexpected. Dumbledore was essentially conceding the central point of Harry's petition. Harry exchanged a quick glance with Mr. Artemis, who gave a subtle nod. This aligned perfectly with their strategy. Mr. Potter, Madam Longbottom addressed him again, would such an arrangement satisfy your petition's intent? It would, Harry confirmed. Provided that I retain final authority in matters directly related to Potter family magic and properties, and that the Guardianship Council includes individuals of my choosing. For the next 2 hours, the committee methodically addressed the details of this arrangement. Harry answered each question with a poise that belied his years, demonstrating both the knowledge granted by his ancestors and his own growing confidence. Throughout, Dumbledore offered minimal objections, focusing instead on practical safety considerations. When the committee finally adjourned to deliberate, Remus leaned close to Harry. "You were magnificent," he murmured. James and Lily would be bursting with pride. "They are," confirmed the voices in Harry's mind. Since the ascension ritual, his parents and grandparents maintained a constant presence, not invasive, but supportive, like trusted advisors always ready to offer counsel. After a remarkably brief deliberation, the committee returned. Madam Longbottom's expression gave nothing away as she resumed her seat. "This committee has reached a unanimous decision," she announced. "We recognize the magical ascension of Harry James Potter as head of House Potter, with all rights and responsibilities thereof regarding family magic, properties, and inheritance. For matters of daily guardianship, we approve the establishment of a guardianship council consisting of Remus John Lupin, Andromeda Tonks, and Minerva McGonagall, with Mr. Lupin serving as primary residence guardian." She paused, fixing Harry with a stern but not unkind gaze. "This unprecedented arrangement reflects unprecedented circumstances. Mr. Potter, the committee acknowledges your unique position while ensuring appropriate adult guidance remains in place. Do you accept these terms?" Harry stood once more. "I do, Madam Chairwitch, and thank the committee for its wisdom." With a sharp rap of her gavel, Augusta Longbottom concluded the hearing. "So ordered. This session is adjourned." The chamber erupted into excited conversation as reporters rushed toward the exits, eager to file their stories. Harry remained seated, waiting until the initial crush subsided before moving. When he finally stood to leave, he found Dumbledore approaching, McGonagall at his side. "Congratulations, Harry," the headmaster said quietly. "You've achieved your primary goal with remarkable efficiency." "Thank you for not opposing it," Harry replied, genuinely appreciative of Dumbledore's restraint. "It would have been, Messier otherwise." "Indeed." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled momentarily. "I find that age sometimes grants the wisdom to recognize when opposition serves no productive purpose." However, his expression grew serious. "Our other discussion remains unfinished. The attack on Hogwarts confirms what I feared. Bellatrix and her allies seek you for a specific purpose." Harry nodded grimly. "The horcrux. They want to use it to resurrect Voldemort." McGonagall winced at the name but maintained her composure. "We've increased security at Hogwarts, but Bellatrix escaped during the battle. 8 other Death Eaters were captured." "Which means she's still hunting for Harry," Remus interjected, placing a protective hand on Harry's shoulder. "Precisely why we must continue our previous conversation," Dumbledore agreed. "Perhaps at a location of your choosing, Harry. With whatever security measures you deem appropriate." Harry considered this, consulting internally with his ancestors. Their consensus was clear. Tomorrow, he decided. The mirror chamber at Gringotts. Neutral ground with goblin security protocols in place. Dumbledore inclined his head. A wise choice. Noon. Noon, Harry confirmed. And Professor, bring everything you know about horcruxes. It's time for complete transparency. Something like respect flickered in Dumbledore's eyes. As you wish, head of House Potter. Gringotts' mirror chamber deserved its name. Circular in design, its walls consisted entirely of enchanted mirrors that prevented any form of magical eavesdropping or surveillance. Goblin guards stood at the single entrance, their expressions impassive but their weapons prominently displayed. Harry arrived first with Remus and Snape, the latter having proven his loyalty repeatedly during recent events. They took seats at the round obsidian table that dominated the chamber's center. Minutes later, Dumbledore entered alone, carrying an ancient leather satchel. "Thank you for arranging this secure location," the headmaster said, settling across from Harry. "What we discuss today must remain absolutely confidential." "Agreed," Harry said. "Let's begin with what we know. Voldemort created multiple horcruxes, objects containing fragments of his soul that anchor him to the physical world. One such fragment accidentally attached to me when the killing curse rebounded." Dumbledore nodded, surprised but pleased by Harry's directness. "Correct. Based on my research, including consultations with your ancestors' soul gems, I believe Voldemort created 6 horcruxes intentionally. You represent an unintended 7th fragment." 6. Remus looked appalled. "That level of soul fragmentation is unprecedented," Snape finished, his normally impassive face showing genuine disgust. No wonder his appearance became increasingly inhuman. Dumbledore opened his satchel, removing a small leather-bound journal. This was his first. A diary from his Hogwarts days, entrusted to Lucius Malfoy. "I recovered it through persuasive means, after identifying its nature." Harry studied the innocuous-looking book, feeling a strange resonance with the scar on his forehead. "You've destroyed it?" "Not yet. I hope to study the destruction process carefully before attempting it on." Dumbledore hesitated. "On me," Harry supplied flatly. "Let's not avoid the central issue, Professor. The horcrux in my scar must be destroyed without killing me, or Voldemort can never truly be defeated." "Precisely." Dumbledore looked relieved at Harry's pragmatism. "And therein lies our most difficult challenge. Typically, horcruxes can only be destroyed by means that would irreparably damage their container." "Meaning methods that would kill me," Harry clarified. "Yes. However," Dumbledore leaned forward intently, "your mother's soul gem contains research she was conducting on soul magic protections. Combined with what I've learned through decades of study, I believe there may be a solution." Harry already knew this, having thoroughly integrated with Lily's consciousness since recovering her soul gem. The ritual of spiritual partition. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You've accessed this knowledge already?" "My mother's research is now part of me," Harry explained. "The ritual would theoretically allow the separation of 2 soul fragments residing in one vessel, permitting the destruction of one while preserving the other." "Theoretically," Dumbledore emphasized. "It remains untested. And the ingredients required are problematic." Harry nodded grimly. "Phoenix tears freely given, basilisk venom, the stone of anchoring, and most challenging, the willing sacrifice of powerful magic from a blood relative." A heavy silence fell over the table as the full implications settled in. "The last requirement is impossible," Remus said quietly. "Harry has no magical blood relatives left." "Not quite impossible," James Potter's voice murmured in Harry's mind. "There's another way." Harry straightened. "My ancestors believe there's an alternative approach. The soul gems themselves represent Potter family magic, blood magic preserved through generations. Their combined power could potentially substitute for a living relative's sacrifice. Dumbledore looked intrigued but concerned. But the gems have already merged with your core through the ascension ritual. Using them in this manner might permanently deplete their power. Meaning I would lose my connection to my ancestors, Harry acknowledged, his voice catching slightly. The thought of losing the precious guidance of his family was devastating. But if it's the only way... It wouldn't be a complete severance, Lily's gentle voice assured him. Our knowledge would remain with you, though our active consciousness would fade. A price worth paying for your life and future, Flemmont added firmly. There's another concern, Snape interjected, his dark eyes fixed on Dumbledore. The stone of anchoring has been lost for centuries. It was last recorded in the possession of Nicholas Flamel. A flicker of something, guilt, crossed Dumbledore's face. Not lost. Safeguarded. Nicholas entrusted it to me nearly 50 years ago, correctly suspecting that Grindelwald sought it for immortality rituals. You have it? Harry asked sharply. I do. Along with its better-known companion, the Philosopher's Stone. Nicholas created the anchoring stone first, a necessary step in developing the alchemical process for the Philosopher's Stone. Remus looked stunned. You've had the means to perform this ritual all along. I've had one component, Dumbledore corrected. The basilisk venom presents another significant challenge. The last known basilisk in Britain died centuries ago. Harry and Snape exchanged meaningful glances. Perhaps not, Harry said carefully. My ancestors believe Salazar Slytherin housed a basilisk within the Chamber of Secrets. If it survived all these centuries. Then we face the rather problematic task of harvesting venom from a giant, lethal serpent that can kill with a glance, Snape observed dryly. Actually, Harry replied, my mother's knowledge includes a specific spell for safely extracting venom from magical creatures. Originally designed for research purposes. And the Phoenix Tears? Remus asked. Dumbledore smiled slightly. Fawkes has already provided those. He seems quite fond of you, Harry, despite your rather complicated relationship with his human companion. For the first time, Harry felt a genuine spark of hope. So it's possible. We can actually perform this ritual. Possible, yes. But extraordinarily dangerous, Dumbledore cautioned. The ritual must be performed at a location of significant magical convergence, ideally during a solar eclipse for maximum efficacy. The next eclipse? Snape asked. 3 days from now, Dumbledore answered. A partial eclipse, but sufficient for our purposes if we conduct the ritual at precisely the right moment. Harry absorbed this information, consulting internally with his ancestors. Their collective wisdom confirmed both the potential and the risks of this approach. Then we have 3 days to prepare, he said decisively. Professor Snape, can you assist with the potion components of the ritual? Snape inclined his head. Certainly. Remus, we'll need to secure an appropriate ritual site. Somewhere defensible yet powerful. I have several possibilities in mind, Remus confirmed. And Professor Dumbledore, Harry turned to the headmaster, will need your expertise on the ritual's execution, plus the stone of anchoring and Phoenix Tears. You shall have them, Dumbledore promised. And additional protection. I've already alerted certain trustworthy Order members to stand ready. One final issue remains, Harry said, his expression hardening. Bellatrix. She's still hunting for me, still trying to resurrect Voldemort. The ritual will make me temporarily vulnerable. A perfect opportunity for her to strike, Snape concluded grimly. Unless, Dumbledore's eyes took on a calculating gleam, we ensure she knows exactly when and where to find you. Harry raised an eyebrow. You want to set a trap. I want to resolve multiple problems simultaneously, Dumbledore corrected. Bellatrix seeks the horcrux to resurrect her master. We seek to destroy it. If she believes she can capture you during a moment of vulnerability, she'll walk directly into our waiting defenses, Remus finished, looking both impressed and concerned. "It's clever, but uses Harry as bait." "I'm already bait," Harry pointed out pragmatically. "This way, at least, we control the circumstances of the confrontation." The discussion continued for another hour, refining details of both the ritual and the protective measures that would surround it. By the time they departed, a comprehensive plan had taken shape, one that addressed not only the horcrux but the immediate Death Eater threat as well. As they left the chamber, Dumbledore placed a gentle hand on Harry's shoulder, stopping him briefly. "I've underestimated you, Harry," the headmaster said quietly. "An error I shall endeavor not to repeat." Harry studied the ancient wizard's face, seeing for the first time the genuine concern beneath the calculated exterior. "We've both made misjudgments, Professor. Perhaps now we can work together properly." "I should like nothing better," Dumbledore replied with a small, hopeful smile. Stonehenge stood silent under the clouded sky, its ancient monoliths casting long shadows across the grass as the sun began its descent. For this one day, the famous site had been completely closed to the public. A special archaeological survey, according to Muggle authorities, though in reality, powerful Muggle-repelling charms surrounded the entire area. At the center of the stone circle, Harry sat cross-legged on a raised platform constructed of white marble. Intricate runes covered every inch of the platform's surface, some carved directly into the stone, others drawn in various magical substances: powdered unicorn horn, dragon's blood, phoenix ash. The 5 soul gems, temporarily extracted from Harry's magical core through a painful reversal of the ascension ritual, rested at 5 points around him, each glowing with internal fire. "How are you feeling?" Remus asked softly, kneeling beside the platform. "Connected," Harry replied, his voice distant. The partial separation from his ancestors left him feeling strangely hollow, yet the gem's proximity maintained a tenuous link. "They're still with me, but fainter." "The eclipse begins in 17 minutes, Snape reported, checking a complicated astronomical instrument. He looked unusually tense, his normally sallow face even paler than usual. "The ritual must commence precisely as the moon first touches the sun's edge." Dumbledore approached, carrying a small wooden box. "The final components, Harry. Are you certain of this course? Once begun, the ritual cannot be safely interrupted." Harry nodded firmly. "I'm certain." "Very well." Dumbledore opened the box, revealing 3 objects: a crystal vial of pearly tears, a smaller obsidian vial containing a viscous green liquid, and a smooth grey stone etched with symbols older than Stonehenge itself. The basilisk venom had been successfully harvested the previous day, a harrowing adventure involving Harry speaking Parseltongue, channeled through his connection to Voldemort's soul fragment, to command the enormous serpent into a magically induced slumber while Snape carefully extracted the precious venom. The beast still lived, returned to its hibernation deep within the Chamber of Secrets. "Our perimeter is secure," reported Kingsley Shacklebolt, an imposing Auror and Order member who coordinated the defensive team surrounding Stonehenge. "If Bellatrix took our bait, she'll find exactly what we prepared for her." The bait had been carefully planted, a conversation between Order members in the Hog's Head pub, mentioning a ritual to unlock Potter's full power at Stonehenge during the eclipse. Just enough information to attract Bellatrix's attention without revealing their true purpose. "Excellent," Dumbledore acknowledged. "Maintain vigilance. We cannot afford disturbances once the ritual begins." As the defenders took their positions, Harry closed his eyes, reaching out to his ancestors one last time with full clarity. "We are with you," Lily's voice assured him. "No matter what happens, a part of us will always remain with you." "You've made us prouder than we could express," James added. "The strength of generations flows through you," Fleamont said firmly. "Potter courage has never faltered," Charles reminded him. "And Potter wisdom has never failed," Doria concluded. Harry opened his eyes, resolve hardening his young features. "I'm ready." The minutes ticked by in tense silence. Then, precisely as the moon's edge began to occlude the sun, Dumbledore raised his wand and began the ritual's invocation, ancient words in a language older than Latin, resonating with power that made the very air vibrate. Snape approached with the basilisk venom, carefully administering 7 drops to a small silver bowl at Harry's right hand. Dumbledore followed with 7 phoenix tears in a matching bowl at Harry's left. Finally, the stone of anchoring was placed directly before him, beginning to pulse with soft grey light as the ritual's magic activated it. Harry took a deep breath and began his part of the ritual, drawing on Lily's perfect knowledge of the complex incantation. The words felt strange on his tongue, older than any language still spoken, pulling magic from the very earth beneath them, channeling it through the ancient monoliths that had stood as conduits for power since time immemorial. As the eclipse progressed, the ritual's effects became visible. A shimmering dome of magic formed over the inner circle, colors shifting from silver to gold to deep crimson. The 5 soul gems rose from their positions, hovering at different heights around Harry, their light pulsing in complex rhythms that matched the cadence of his incantation. Inside the dome, time seemed to distort. Harry felt simultaneously anchored in his physical body yet expanded beyond it, aware of the fragment of foreign soul clinging to his own like a dark parasite. Following the ritual's guidance, he directed his consciousness toward this intrusion, confronting it directly for the first time. It reacted violently, a writhing, hateful presence that sensed the threat to its existence. Pain exploded across Harry's forehead as the horcrux fought back, sending waves of agony through his entire being. He faltered momentarily, the incantation catching in his throat. "Hold fast," his ancestors urged in unified voice. "We are with you." Drawing on their strength, Harry pushed through the pain, continuing the complex spell while mentally isolating the horcrux, pushing it away from his core self. The soul gems pulsed more intensely, their light now streaming toward him in 5 distinct beams that intersected at his heart. Outside the magical dome, the world erupted into chaos. "Contact at the southwest perimeter." Kingsley's voice boomed. Multiple hostiles approaching. Bellatrix had arrived, leading a contingent of Death Eaters and dark creatures against the defensive line. Spellfire illuminated the increasingly darkened landscape as the eclipse progressed toward totality. "Maintain the perimeter at all costs," Dumbledore commanded, never breaking his part of the ritual. "The ritual cannot be interrupted." Inside the dome, Harry remained focused despite the distant sounds of battle. The ritual had reached its critical phase. The stone of anchoring now glowed blindingly bright, its purpose finally clear. It would serve as a temporary vessel for the extracted soul fragment, containing it long enough for destruction. "Anima separis," Harry cried, the ritual's separation command. "Cordis meum protectus, fragmentum alienis extractus." The soul gems blazed with unified light, pouring their combined power through Harry. He felt their consciousness dimming as they sacrificed their magical essence, his connection to his ancestors fading even as their final gift manifested. The exchange was working, ancestral magic replacing the void that would be left by the horcrux's removal. A scream tore from Harry's throat as the foreign soul fragment began to physically separate from him. A dark, oily substance seeped from his lightning scar, hanging in the air before him like toxic smoke. The stone of anchoring pulsed, drawing this darkness toward itself. "Now, Harry," Dumbledore called. "The final binding." With tremendous effort, Harry completed the incantation, directing the extracted fragment fully into the stone. The moment it made contact, he reached for the 2 bowls at his sides, pouring their contents, basilisk venom and phoenix tears, directly onto the stone. The reaction was immediate and violent. The stone hissed and steamed as the venom ate into its surface, the imprisoned soul fragment shrieking with an inhuman voice that somehow remained silent yet deafened everyone present. The phoenix tears prevented the stone's complete destruction, containing the violent reaction while allowing the venom to destroy only the horcrux within. Outside the dome, Bellatrix sensed the horcrux's destruction. Her anguished scream rivaled the horcrux's silent cry. "No!" she shrieked, fighting with renewed frenzy against the defensive line. "My lord! He's killing my lord!" In her manic state, she broke through the outer perimeter, sending Order members flying with devastating curses as she charged toward the stone circle. Remus and Kingsley moved to intercept her, but her madness lent her terrible strength and speed. Within the dome, the ritual concluded as the eclipse reached its maximum coverage. The stone of anchoring cracked down the center, the horcrux within it fully destroyed. The 5 soul gems, now dim and nearly lifeless, drifted slowly back to their positions around Harry. The magical dome dissolved just as Bellatrix reached the inner circle. She stopped, wild-eyed, staring at Harry with an expression of mingled hatred and despair. "What have you done?" she whispered, then shrieked. "What have you done?" Harry met her gaze steadily, feeling lighter and cleaner than he had in his entire life. The constant pressure he'd never even recognized was suddenly gone, leaving his mind clearer, his magic purer. "I removed what never belonged to me," he answered simply. With an incoherent cry of rage, Bellatrix raised her wand. "Then you'll die for it." Avada! Her killing curse was interrupted by Dumbledore, who had maintained enough power in reserve despite the ritual to intervene with devastating efficiency. His silent spell caught Bellatrix mid-incantation, encasing her in a crystalline prison that froze her in place. "Enough death, Bellatrix," the headmaster said quietly. "Enough darkness." Around the perimeter, the remaining Death Eaters were being subdued or driven off by the combined efforts of the Order members and Aurors. The battle was ending almost as quickly as it had begun, Bellatrix's forces losing heart as their leader was captured. Harry remained seated on the platform, exhausted beyond measure yet somehow whole in a way he'd never experienced. He reached for the soul gems, finding them significantly diminished, still containing traces of his ancestors' knowledge but no longer housing their active consciousness. "They're gone," he whispered, a tear sliding down his cheek. "They sacrificed themselves." Remus knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Not gone entirely. Their knowledge remains with you, and their blood flows in your veins. They live on through you, Harry." The ritual was successful, Dumbledore confirmed, approaching after ensuring Bellatrix's containment. "The horcrux is destroyed. Your scar will remain, but it is now merely a scar, no longer a vessel for Voldemort's soul." Harry touched his forehead, feeling the familiar lightning bolt shape. It felt different, just dead tissue now, no longer pulsing with malevolent energy. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Healing," Dumbledore replied simply. "Rest. Recovery. And when you're ready, preparation for the challenges still to come. Voldemort isn't truly gone, is he?" Harry realized. The prophecy still stands. There are other horcruxes. Dumbledore nodded gravely. "Yes. But you need not face that burden alone, nor immediately. You have time now, time to grow, to learn, to truly become yourself without his shadow directly upon you." As Order members secured the site and Aurors took custody of the captured Death Eaters, Harry slowly rose to his feet. He gathered the 5 diminished soul gems, placing them carefully in a velvet pouch. Though they could no longer speak to him directly, he felt their residual warmth against his palm, a reminder of what he'd gained and what he'd sacrificed. "I'd like to go home now," he said simply. Remus nodded, understanding perfectly what Harry meant. Not the Dursleys. Not even the hunting lodge. But the Potter family estate, his true ancestral home, now accessible to him as recognized head of House Potter. "Of course," Remus agreed. "It's time." Potter Manor emerged from morning mist like a vision from another age. Built of honey-colored stone with expansive gardens surrounding it, the house balanced grandeur with warmth, a true family home rather than an ostentatious mansion. As Harry approached the wrought iron gates, they recognized his magical signature, swinging open in silent welcome. "It's been waiting for you," Remus observed quietly. 2 weeks had passed since the ritual at Stonehenge. Bellatrix and her captured followers had been returned to Azkaban under enhanced security. Harry had spent the intervening time recovering at the hunting lodge, his magic stabilizing after the trauma of the horcrux removal. Now, finally strong enough for the journey, he had come to claim his true inheritance. They walked up the curved drive, magical landscaping coming to life around them, flowers turning to track Harry's movement, ornamental fountains beginning to flow, even the trees seeming to straighten as if standing at attention for their returning master. At the massive oak front doors, Harry paused, placing his palm against the carved family crest. I, Harry James Potter, head of House Potter, claim my ancestral home. The doors recognized him instantly, swinging inward to reveal a sun-filled entrance hall. Though the house had stood empty since James and Lily went into hiding years before, no dust or decay marred its interior. Preservation charms had maintained everything in perfect condition, waiting for the family's return. As Harry stepped across the threshold, he felt a powerful sense of belonging wash over him. This was where he was meant to be. This was home. House elves appeared almost immediately, their excitement barely contained as they bowed and welcomed Master Harry home at last. Remus watched with a smile as Harry greeted each by name, drawing on the knowledge his ancestors had left him about the loyal creatures who had served the Potter family for generations. They spent the day exploring the manor, from the extensive library that had Remus practically salivating, to the fully equipped potions laboratory that would make even Snape envious, to the family wing with bedrooms prepared for every Potter generation. In what would have been Harry's nursery, they found a room half transformed into a child's bedroom, evidence of James and Lily's intention to return here once the danger had passed. Late afternoon found them in the family gallery, where portraits and photographs of Potters throughout the centuries lined the walls. Unlike the soul gems, these magical portraits contained only surface impressions of their subjects, simplified echoes rather than true consciousness, but they greeted Harry enthusiastically nonetheless. "They remember you," Remus observed as painted ancestors called out to Harry. "You visited here as a baby, before Godric's Hollow." Harry nodded, absorbing this connection to his past. Though the deep bond with his ancestors through the soul gems had dimmed, he still carried their knowledge and memories. He knew this house intimately despite never having consciously been here before. A soft chime announced a visitor at the gates. The head house elf, Nibley, appeared with a small pop. "Master Harry, Professor Dumbledore is requesting entrance." Harry exchanged glances with Remus, then nodded. "Allow him in and show him to the main parlor." They met Dumbledore there, the headmaster looking somewhat out of place in the comfortable family setting despite his usual composure. "Harry," he greeted warmly. "You look well. The manor's magic agrees with you." "It does," Harry confirmed. "Thank you for coming, Professor. I imagine you're busy with preparations for the new school term." "Never too busy for important matters," Dumbledore replied, accepting the offered seat. "I wanted to discuss your arrangements before Hogwarts reconvenes. The Guardianship Council is now officially registered with both the Ministry and Gringotts, with Mr. Lupin as primary guardian." Harry nodded. "And my education? That's partly why I'm here. While you won't formally join Hogwarts until you turn 11, your unique circumstances suggest that standard educational approaches may be insufficient. You're proposing specialized tutoring," Harry guessed. "Indeed. A curriculum tailored to your particular needs and abilities, building on the knowledge you've already gained while preparing you for the challenges still to come." "The remaining horcruxes," Harry said quietly. Dumbledore's expression turned grave. "Yes. Though I've been researching them for years, our recent cooperation has accelerated my progress significantly. With your permission, I'd like to continue that joint effort." "A true partnership this time," Harry stipulated. "Complete transparency." "Absolutely," Dumbledore agreed without hesitation. "I've learned my lesson about the dangers of excessive secrecy, however well-intentioned." They discussed the educational arrangements in detail, eventually agreeing on a combination of tutors visiting Potter Manor and occasional supervised trips to Hogwarts for specific training. Snape would continue potions instruction, McGonagall would handle transfiguration, Flitwick charms, and Dumbledore himself would oversee Harry's development in defensive magic and the specific skills needed to eventually confront Voldemort. As their meeting concluded, Dumbledore hesitated, then reached into his robes and withdrew a small package wrapped in simple brown paper. A housewarming gift, if I may, he said, offering it to Harry. Something that rightfully belongs to you. Harry unwrapped it carefully to find a shimmering, fluid-like fabric that seemed to flow like water through his fingers. Your father's invisibility cloak, Dumbledore explained. James loaned it to me shortly before that night. I should have returned it to you sooner. Harry ran his hands over the magical fabric, feeling a connection to his father that transcended even the soul gems bond. This was something James had used, had touched, had treasured. Thank you, he said sincerely. Dumbledore nodded, a hint of something like regret in his eyes. You are more than welcome. And Harry, while I regret the circumstances that led us here, I cannot regret the young wizard you're becoming. Your parents would be extraordinarily proud. After Dumbledore departed, Harry and Remus enjoyed dinner in the manor's smaller dining room, served enthusiastically by house elves overjoyed to have a Potter in residence again. As evening settled over the estate, they retired to the family library, where Harry examined the extensive collection of journals written by Potter ancestors throughout the centuries. It's strange, Harry mused, leafing through a volume penned by Charles. I can read his words and hear his voice in my mind, but it's muted now. Like remembering a song instead of hearing it. The connection changed, Remus acknowledged. But it wasn't severed completely. They're still with you in the ways that matter most. Harry nodded, closing the journal carefully. I miss them. Their active presence, their immediate guidance. But at the same time, there's something freeing about having space in my own mind again. Balance, Remus suggested. You needed their direct intervention to survive and thrive after years of neglect. But eventually, every child must learn to walk their own path while honoring those who came before. Later, as Harry prepared for his first night in his ancestral home, he stood at the window of his bedroom, gazing out over the moonlit grounds. The future still held significant challenges. Voldemort would eventually return, the prophecy ensuring their paths would cross again. But for the first time, Harry felt prepared to meet that future on his own terms. From a shelf nearby, the 5 soul gems rested in their velvet-lined box. Though diminished, they still glowed faintly with internal light, amber, sapphire, emerald, ruby, and opal maintaining their silent vigil. Harry touched each one gently, feeling the echo of his ancestors' presence. Thank you, he whispered. For everything. As he turned away, the gems pulsed once in unison, a final acknowledgement, a promise that though their conscious guidance had faded, the Potter legacy would never truly leave him. Harry Potter, head of House Potter, fell asleep in his ancestral home, surrounded by the protection of generations and the promise of a future shaped by his own choices rather than others' machinations. The soul gems had served their purpose, not just in defeating the horcrux or escaping Dumbledore's control, but in connecting a lonely boy with the family he had lost, giving him the foundation to build something new. Outside, stars wheeled overhead, marking the passage of time and the turning of ages. Within the ancient walls of Potter Manor, a new chapter had begun, not just for Harry, but for the wizarding world that would one day look to him as more than just the boy who lived. The inheritance had awakened. The shadows had been conquered. The soul had been redeemed. And Harry Potter was finally home. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.